All right, I see a couple folks still connecting to audio, so we'll just wait till folks get it figured out. Okay,
Live stream is up.
great. Thank you, Eric. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Mel Barnes. I'm Chief Legal Counsel to Governor Evers and the Chair of the Pardon Advisory Board. I'm going to go through a couple of housekeeping items and introduce you to all of my fellow board members here, and then we will go ahead and get started hearing from all of you. So fellow board members with me today on the Zoom include Anthony Cooper Sr., who is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Recovery Services for Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development. He received a pardon from Governor Evers in January of 2021. We also have Reverend Jerry Hancock, who is the Director of the Prison Ministry Project. He previously served as a public defender, a deputy district attorney, and an administrator for the Department of Justice's Division of Law Enforcement Services. We also have board member Reverend John McVicker Sr., who is the founding pastor of Christ the King Baptist Church in Milwaukee. He additionally serves as the board chairman for King's Academy Christian School and is an associate chaplain for the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department. We also have board member Nadia Perez-Reyes, who is the assistant secretary for the Department of Children and Families. She previously worked as a state public defender and as an attorney for Legal Action of Wisconsin. And finally, we have board member Noble Ray, who served with the Madison Police Department for almost 28 years, including as chief of police from 2004 to 2013. He led the U.S. Department of Justice's Policing Practices and Accountability Initiative and currently provides racial bias training for law enforcement agencies around the nation and around the world. Did I miss any board members? No, all right. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we dive in and start hearing from all of you. A reminder that the hearing is being live streamed via Wisconsin Eye and YouTube today. We'll ask you to mute yourselves and turn your video off until it is your turn to be heard by the board. That will allow us to make sure we have good audio quality and that the board can focus their attention on the person who's presenting. If you do run into any IT issues with the Zoom today, don't worry. Someone from my team will give you a call and we'll get it all sorted out. We can troubleshoot pretty much anything these days. And if we need to come back to you in order because you're not ready, when is your turn on the agenda, don't worry about it. We will just go ahead and come back to you once we have Zoom working. So we will call people on the order listed in the agenda and then meetings notice. Each person will have about 5 minutes with the board, and we'll ask you to use your time in this way. We'll ask you to spend about the first 3 minutes answering the questions we sent you in advance of the meeting. So as a reminder, that's providing us a brief summary of your offenses and how your sentence went, then a brief summary of what you've done since the completion of your sentence, including any community involvement, employment, things like that. And then finally, a brief statement about why you're seeking a pardon and why you think the governor should grant you one. Then the board will spend the next 2 minutes or so asking you any questions that they have to follow up on what you've shared and your application materials. Try not to read too much into it, whether we have questions or not. Sometimes everything is just answered by what you've shared, but if board members do need additional information, we want to make sure everyone has what they need to make their recommendation to the governor. Once you're done fielding questions from the board, you're welcome to leave the meeting. You can sign out of Zoom and go about the rest of your day. Once everyone has heard, the board will then go into closed session to decide whether or not to recommend your application to the governor for a pardon. You need a majority support of board members present for your application to move forward to the governor, and the governor will then decide whether to accept or reject your application for a pardon. So we know that you've been waiting for quite a while already, and this process has been a long one, but I want to just remind you all that you won't know the outcome of your application today. You can expect to hear from the office in about a month or two on the status of your pardon. So we will call folks up in the order listed on the agenda. And we will be starting our morning session today with Mr. Kyle Rosner. Mr. Rosner, if you're in the Zoom, we're ready to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Kyle Rosner. In the last 26 years since my sentence, I've pretty much stayed under the lines, except for speeding tickets. Haven't had any other major, what do I say, crimes. Kept my nose clean. Just been waiting for the last 20 years to hopefully get this out so I can go gun hunting with my father again. Been working at Filing Concrete and doing concrete work for the last 24 years. Other than that, I don't know what else to say. I guess I could leave it to the board to ask any more questions.
Sure, Mr. Rosner, before we go to questions, I'm just going to ask you to back up a little and touch on the first question. Could you tell us a little bit about the offense you're seeking a pardon for today and what your sentence was and how that time went for you?
So my sentence was, my crime was third-degree sexual assault of a minor back in 1996, I believe. I served 2 years in the jail, most of which was on Huber. My probation was revoked because I was young and wasn't thinking about the repercussions of what I was doing. After that, I got off of probation, obviously, because I was revoked. And after that, I pretty much had a daughter, raised her with my ex-wife, and started a new life and tried to stay as clean as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Rosner. Noting it was 1996 and you were 19 at the time, could you tell us, was this a relationship that you had with the minor?
Yes, it was. At the time, it was a relationship. Honestly, didn't know that it was a felony, what I was doing. Had I known, I may have definitely not done what I was doing. A lot of regret for that in the past 26 years. But I feel like I've paid for it. And, well, and I mean, I obviously feel sorry for what I had done. My victim, I hope she's doing well. But I think that's about all I can really say on that behalf.
All right, Mr. Rosner, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions from the board.
Okay.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Rosner? Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Rosner, the judge and district attorney in Portage County reviewed your application for a pardon, and
Yes.
Both of them support it. How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel elated. I'm just happy to be in front of you guys because of all this. Been waiting, like I said, I've been waiting a very long time and hoping and praying that I would finally be heard, and I'm glad I have been.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Noel?
Yes, Mr. Rosner, just trying to get a better sense of kind of the relationship itself. Was this boyfriend, girlfriend? Was it,
It was boyfriend, girlfriend.
in school? How did all of this happen? And, what was all going on?
Okay, so we were boyfriend, girlfriend. What was all going on? I was dating her. She was, I believe, 15. I was 19. And we were dating for a few months. Obviously, we were having sex, and after her parents and everything had found out, I got reported, and the legal system took over. I ended up going to jail and doing my time for my crime. And then shortly after, obviously, we broke up. So I'd say it was just a 3-month relationship. Other than that, I don't know what else you are looking for.
Do you still communicate with her?
I have not talked to her since. I mean, I know she's on Facebook and stuff, and she's obviously friends with my friends on Facebook, but I haven't reached out to her or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from the board for Mr. Rosner? None? All right. Thank you, Mr. Rosner. I think that answers everything that we have for you. Thank you for taking the time to share your story with us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for hearing me out. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Next up, we have Mr. Stephen Wersba. Mr. Wersba, are you with us in the Zoom? Perhaps not.
Okay,
Stephen
can you hear me
Wersba?
now?
Oh, there we
Can you-
go.
Can you see me too?
Cannot see you yet. We can hear you.
Okay,
Let's see here. I'll ask someone to see if they can prompt you to get your video turned on. Sometimes that helps.
okay.
There
Oh,
we
you
are.
go.
All right, we can see you and we'll turn it over to you. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly, Mr. Wersba?
Yeah, where's Bo?
Great. All right, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you all for your time, first of all, and then, the offense that I'm looking for a pardon for happened back in, January of 1990. It was a burglary. I think I'll start by going back a little further in that, because that was the second offense. And, the first offense was, about, I don't know, 9 or 10 months earlier, when I was with some friends and we were drinking and we went in the back door of a grocery store and grabbed some alcohol. And so I was on probation for that. And I guess we didn't learn our lesson yet. And so then come January 1990, we went to a storage building at the fairgrounds where they would keep, people would store things there for the winter, pay the town or whatever to store things in. And we knew they were like classic cars, and so we just went there to look at the cars really. But I guess one thing led to another, and we ended up taking some stereos, a couple stereos and an equalizer. And so we took those, and then a couple weeks later, the other guy that was with me, we went, he wanted a faceplate from one of the stereos that we left behind. So we went back and we grabbed that faceplate, and while we were there, he found some spray paint in one of the cars. And so I'd say he recognized the car as somebody that didn't get along with us. And so we got, the police found us after that, and I didn't get revoked from my probation. I'm not really sure why, but I did get this felony, and we paid restitution, and I spent a few days on probation, holding jail, a drug and alcohol assessment, which I went through no problem. Let's see. So since the conviction, that was about 34 years ago. So quite a while now. I kept my constant employment during that whole time, except for when I was in school at times, and I was fighting cancer for a while, so I wasn't working during that time. But otherwise, I was working. I've been working the whole time. In fact, that same job for the past 24 and a half years. I have some rental units that I take care of also. I have a associate degree in architecture. I did that after, back in the mid 90s. And then I really had trouble getting a job after that. Well, it was during that time that I had cancer. So by the time I started looking for a job, I was really having trouble getting a job. I got a lot of a lot of jobs passing by, and I'm sure part of it was because of the time delay that I had there, but I'm sure a lot of it had to do with this offense being on my record also. So it kind of affected me a lot there. And I ended up going to school again during the time that I couldn't work, and got a certified motorcycle mechanic certification, a 6-month school that I went to, and so I went through that, and I ended up working on motorcycles for a while, and then got into the job I have now. I've done some other classes along the way. I've taken numerous classes at the university and the area tech school, just trying to better myself, mostly for like entrepreneurial type stuff, business, computers, and shop type stuff for say like mechanical type stuff. What else? In community wise, I do things. I'm not super active, but I get into some of the community walk, the cancer walks, since I've been through that, and we do a lot of Big Brothers Big Sisters bowling events. I volunteer with 4-H when my girlfriend's kids were in 4-H. My daughter, when she was in school, I used to help out with. She was like in cheer competitions, and I'd go volunteer at those events. We do the Earth Day cleanups every year. I get involved in some in groups, and sometimes my girlfriend and I will just go walking down the roads. We pick asparagus, and we always take a garbage bag with us and pick up garbage all over the place. And then I got involved in there's a group around here, the North Central Conservancy Trust, that I did some volunteering with them. They do invasive species type stuff, getting rid of it. And
Thank you, Mr. Wurzba. That's quite a bit of volunteer activity. I just want to see if the board has any questions for you so that we make sure we cover everything.
Okay.
Board members?
Okay.
Jerry.
Mr. Wurzba, the judge in Portage County who reviewed your pardon application supports your application for a pardon, as does the victim, the fairgrounds. They also support your application. How does that make you feel?
It really good. I'm really grateful that they feel like highly enough about me. I'm surprised I'm actually more surprised at some of the the letters of recommendation I got that really stood out for me. I was surprised, but the that the judge, I guess that he's never seen me since, so he's probably really happy about that.
Well, it was a different judge, but we always ask the judge in the county what they think, and they support it. And you did get a really interesting letter from the mayor of Stevens Point, who said he would trust Steve with my house, my children, and even my motorcycle.
Yeah, yeah. That made me feel pretty good to see that.
Thank you.
Mayor. Yeah, I really like the mayor.
Any other questions for Mr. Worsbeth? All right, then I think that covers it for us, Mr. Worsbeth. Thank you very much for your time and for being with us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.
All right, thank you very much.
Our next applicant is Mr. Brad Cook. Mr. Cook, there you are. We'll turn it over to you.
Crook, Crook, but
Cook, I'm sorry about
yeah,
that.
that's all right. It's all right. Good morning, Ms. Barnes and the board. In around September of 2005, I was convicted of a Class F felony for burglary of a dwelling. Sentencing went, as far as I remember, went as expected. I couldn't afford an attorney, so I had to get a public defender. So I knew just kind of going in to kind of take the lumps and the things that were coming, which I took the felony conviction due to the fact that I had a young child. Did not want to have either my child visiting me in jail or anything like that. So I chose the felony to keep myself out, to make sure that I could raise my child properly, where it was at the time also going through kind of a custody battle. So that would have impeded a little more on that custody battle had I not been able to be around, and things would have been a little different. With that being said, in the time after my conviction, I believe I was on probation. I served the probation, got, started to build my life back, which was the whole point of what I wanted to do with my life in general, having a son, and showing him the correct way to be a productive member of society, which we wound up moving to Oshkosh. We became friends and neighbors with a lot of people in the neighborhood. It was a neighborhood that I remember as a child having some serious issues in the neighborhood, and we joined teams with a lot of people that were also homeowners in the area, creating a neighborhood association. Worked hand in hand with the police officers and the police department in the community, making sure that we kept things cleaned up. And we're right by the university, so obviously there's always fun involved with that, and making sure kids are safe with pub crawls. We would have everybody who owned a home or even rented would put a fire pit out on their sidewalk, and kids would get lost. We'd help them find their way back to their homes and things like that. Became very good friends with, before she was a mayor, Lori Palmieri, and her husband was a professor, Tony Palmieri at UWO. In that time, they were also involved with the neighborhood association. Grew to become great friends with those guys. Now she's an assemblywoman with the state. She also wrote a letter of recommendation, which I'm grateful for. So did my cousin, and Tony also wrote a letter of recommendation. In that time since then as well, I have been extremely involved in the sport of wrestling. I have taken teams across the country, from here to Colorado to North Carolina to Michigan, you name it, coaching kids. I think a big thing that has affected me with this felony is there are certain things that you have to get a USA Wrestling card, and obviously they want to know if you've been convicted of certain things, and having to put that down. I have to go through certain steps in order to make sure that I get that card so I can coach these kids successfully. Each time I have to go through it, it's been passed, but it weighs a lot on my mind, as far as just the conviction itself and how it looks. With that being said, other things have happened, that have kind of affected me with that conviction, is getting employment. Now, obviously, people can't necessarily tell you or will tell you that, this is the reason why. But when that comes out, and then you're moving so far forward in the employment process, and then that comes out, and then telling you that you've gone a different direction. So it has really affected life in kind of a larger aspect of as far as who I'm in front of, who I'm around, and the people that it does affect. And with me coaching kids and trying to stay, as active as I am with these organizations, it does kind of weigh a little more as far as the background. But just been trying to live life and be as positive as possible, and trying to stay involved in the community that we've moved to now in Kaukauna. And with that being said, I really believe that the other aspect is, and I hear a lot of people talk about it, and it's not the main, but hunting was a big part of my life. I trained field trial dogs, and I duck hunted a lot. I would say almost from the time I was in high school and could hunt up until that time, every year I was taking my dogs out and hunting. So that's a small portion to me. To me, it's really being involved in the community and knowing that I have a positive impact and will always have a positive impact, especially with the way that being with my wife who's a paralegal and knowing the law a little bit more and seeing things how things can go. But I really feel that with the process and things that I went through, I feel that I've learned a valuable lesson from things that have transpired. So
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I just want to see if board members have any follow-up questions for you. Any questions? Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Crook, the district attorney in Winnebago County reviewed your application for a pardon and supports it. How does that make you feel?
knowing that I do have that type of support outside of the others feels great. I'm grateful just for the opportunities that I get every day. So knowing that came up and that was their opinion on it, I really do appreciate that.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Cook? All right, hearing none, I think that covers it. Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Cook, and hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
You as well. All right, next up is Mr. Kim Cotterman, who I believe I saw. Here we are, Mr. Cotman, we'll turn it over to you. Oh, we still have you muted. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry about that.
No
My name
problem.
is Kim Coderman. I'm pushing 82 years. And back when I was 18, I did a very foolish thing in that I stole some money from an employer. I was convicted of theft and got 2 years of probation, which ended in December of '62. I've had nothing worse touching the law other than in my younger days, a few speeding tickets. Married now 62 years. I have 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and 2.5 great-grandchildren. Got into accounting, which has been my main source of income, etc. Sold my accounting tax practice in 2000, but still do a lot of tax work. Very involved with our church, was on church boards in the past. My wife and I have a ministry to Rwanda, Africa, and take teams there. This hanging over my head all these years has at times has been restrictive in getting jobs. And now my oldest son is somewhat of a gun collector, and I can't even buy a gun, which seems after all this time that I would hopefully be able to clean up this flaw in my record. And I've been a good citizen all these years and expect to go to my grave doing the same. And I appreciate your consideration of this.
Thank you, Mr. Coderman. I was reviewing your application. Is it true that you're still doing taxes?
Yes, ma'am.
That is
You
impressive.
should see my desk.
As someone who really needs to get around to doing her own, I appreciate that.
I'm
Board
an
member,
I'm a enrolled agent since 1984.
very impressive. Board members, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Coderman? Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Corman, the judge in Milwaukee who reviewed your application supports it. How does that make you feel?
Well, I'm appreciative of anything in the system that can help right this flaw in my record.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Codeman. I appreciate your time and sharing your story with us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next applicant is Mr. James Everett, who I believe I saw entering the Zoom. There we are.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to, I was here to talk about my crimes and stuff. 41 years ago, I got arrested and convicted for selling a half ounce of marijuana to an undercover police officer. And the other one is happened about 10 years later. It was possession of a firearm by a felon. Like I said, these happened over 41 years ago. What I've done since then is that it's been hard. It's been hard. I've started basically because I couldn't be bonded anymore because of being a felon. I wasn't allowed to be bonded. So I was losing a lot of jobs and stuff like that. So I had to forge my own path. I become a landlord. And as a landlord, you have to screen tenants for both criminal and financial things. You have to check, make sure they can afford your rental properties. And the thing about that is not only can I as a landlord see what other people have, they can also see what I've got. So it's a double-edged sword. I have to wonder, how many people have refused or didn't want to rent from me, which would be hard on a business. I'm working as far as my landlord stuff goes. I've got several. I house several families. God, I'm getting lost here. I helped. Let's see. As I move from my as I move up, I'm part of the landlord association, and I want to get more involved with them. Part of the problem with that is the more you move up, the more transparent you become, and people want to find out about you. And as they find out about you, the criminal stuff comes up. They don't care that it happened 40 years ago. The fact that it's there is what brings this. I from the day this happened, I couldn't tell you how sorry I was, because I was no longer back in the 80s, you were still the military was still able to reject people for, you know, for these types of things. It started there. And then from there on, it was stumbling block after stumbling block, which led me into landlording so that I can keep myself together and become productive citizen of society. You know, I'm a taxpayer. You know, I handle tenant problems left and right. Matter of fact, I've got to go clean up kitchen sink out after I'm done here. The reason that I'm asking for this pardon is because I have properties here. I have a couple properties overseas as well. And as you know or are aware of, even getting into Canada can be a huge problem for people like us that have felonies. The laws are changing, and they're getting stiffer as far as requirements and what is needed for the ability to go and stay for a little while and work on the properties or whatever. So basically, I would like this pardon for foreign travel for business. You know, banks are another reason that you can get a loan. You can get a small loan for cars and stuff. They don't mind that. But when you start asking for big money, you know, that's when they start digging deeper, and they want to know things. Like I said, these are problems that I've had. I just, like I said, I got these when I was young, and like I said, you know, I can't tell you how sorry I am for what I've done, but again, I can't turn back time. So all I can do is move forward. I think that might be about it, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Let's just see if board members have questions for you. Noble.
Yeah, it's just a question and a comment.
Yes, sir.
How are you able to get into Canada? Is it some type of work permit type situation, or for a period of time you can go there and?
No,
They give
I
you
can't.
status?
I've never been to Canada. I've
Okay.
never been there. I'm just saying that the laws are changing, and if you know anything about, if you've heard anything, Canada's really a stickler as far as who they allow into their country. I know it sounds ironic considering what we see happening at the borders, but I'm not going to get into the political side of everything. But trying to get across the border to Canada, even, you know, if the border guard there doesn't like what he sees, he just rejects you right then and there.
Yeah. The other questions, thank you for that answer. I know that there are procedures in place that would allow someone to do specific work or therefore specific purpose, but
Mhm.
The border guards do have a lot of discretion. The second, just an observation, you know, we've been doing this for a number of years now, and you're one of the first landlords, property owners that have come forward and talked about the reverse, where people may look at you and say, well, you have a record, so I won't rent your property. This is the first time I've heard that.
Do you own property, sir?
Mhm.
You do. Well, yeah, it's very simple. They can look you up on CCAP. If you're not a big conglomerate, a nameless face of a place, people have no recourse really. But if you're just a little landlord, your name is there. And so you have to, you put your best foot forward. But, if they can look at you and they see that, you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And I've tried my best to always put my best foot forward. And I've had fairly good luck with my tenants, but again, like I said, what you can see, they can see.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on that one actually a little bit. Do you feel like knowing that people can see that about you and knowing that you have this in your background, does it make you approach renting to folks who might also have felony convictions any differently?
Yes, I do. If it's, as a general rule, you're supposed to kind of, I've got discretion in my buildings. Okay, so I've got a tenant now who is in his mid-70s, and he's done something. And when he came to me, he readily said that and was expecting me to just say, thanks, we'll be in touch. But because of where he was, not the crime, but where he is, I took a chance with him, and I'm very happy. He's quiet, rents on time. If there's a problem with the apartment or something, like, he'll notify me. I've always been a big stickler with, as a landlord, I want you to tell me there's a problem. I want to deal with a $2 problem. I don't want to have to deal with a $200 problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, but as far as how I deal with it, yes, yeah, I do have more. Yeah, because when I see them, turning their life around, yeah, I'm not gonna block them if they wanna do. Their actions will speak. Their actions will speak for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Everett? All right. Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Everett. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.
Thank you, dear. Bye. Oh, sorry. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Our next applicant is Mr. John Steinhoff.
Good morning. I'm Mr. Steinhoff's attorney. He's here with me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Mr. Steinhoff, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, in 1979, I was convicted of possession of cocaine with intent to deliver. On the night I was arrested, police showed up with a warrant. Me and my wife at the time, in the home in our bedroom, we had cocaine, which was on top of a scale. There were other people over at the time, but I claimed responsibility for all the drugs. At the time in my life, we often partied, used drugs at these parties. I'm not proud of my actions, and I'm still very embarrassed to this day about this conviction. My My conviction led to me reassessing my life. I lost many of my so-called friends. They were not actually friends, so I reevaluated my life, which ultimately led me to get a divorce from my ex-wife, which eventually passed away from an overdose because she continued to do drugs. I was sentenced to 3 years probation with 90 days in jail, served my sentence with no issues. It's been almost 45 years since my conviction. In that time, I've maintained steady employment, raised a family, setting a good example for my children and grandchildren, and now I have 2 very adorable great-granddaughters. My current job over 16 years is managing a tow company in which we tow for 6 municipalities in eastern Racine County for accidents and whatever else is needed, which involves close contact with police departments and fire departments. My life has completely turned around since I married my second wife, Jeannie, now of almost 34 years. In addition to raising our children, we've also taken care of Jeannie's parents who moved in with us, not with us, but near us, because they're very elderly, so they couldn't take care of themselves, so we take care of them. In addition to that, her brother is a disabled veteran. He lost his wife, so he moved in with us. So we're taking care of that situation also. I've been involved in Racine community, assessing the Caledonia Fire Department with setting up mock accidents through the tow company, so they can come out and use their equipment for their new recruits to practice on accident scenes, so they're not going on a live accident and not knowing what they're doing with their equipment. In addition to that, I do help in the 4th of July parade, as far as floats and stuff like that. My life has changed for the better ever since my conviction. I owe no taxes. I have an excellent credit rating. Receiving a pardon would show my family and others that I'm not the person that I was. A pardon would also open doors for me to spend more meaningful time hunting with my grandchildren and my sons, since we own multiple properties, me and my wife, in Adams County. That they would like to go, and I cannot do that with this conviction. Can't have anybody hunting on my property. I do have a CDL license, and I'm planning on retiring at the end of July and possibly get a school bus driving job, which I cannot do with this felony conviction on my record either. So with that, I guess that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Steinhoff. Board members, any questions? Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Steinhoff, you said in your application you want a pardon so you can go fishing in Canada if your wife will go with you. Do you think she will?
I'm hoping she will. But I didn't know if I could go to Canada being a felon. That was the problem.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Steinhoff. Appreciate your time with us today and hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.
Thank you for talking. Thank you.
All right, next up is Miss Aretha Schrumpert. Ms. Schrumpert? Oh, we can't hear you. It says it's connecting. Let's give it 1 second here. Still can't hear you. Is there another kind of okay button you need to click? All right, Ms. Schrumpert, I'll tell you what, I will have someone give you a call and reach out to you and see if we can help troubleshoot the audio issues. And we'll come back as soon as we've got you working, all right? Thank you. All right, in that case, we will skip ahead just briefly to Miss LaShonda Murphy. Ms. Murphy, are you with us on the Zoom? we've got a couple folks called in by phone, so we don't have names. Miss Murphy, if you can hear us, we are ready to speak with you. All right. In that case, we will go ahead to Mr. Kip Kolch, who I do believe I saw. Mr. Kolch?
Yeah. Hello.
There we are. All right, Mr. Kolch, we'll turn
Hello.
it over to you.
How you doing?
Good.
Name's Polish. Back in 2007, I was approximately 23 years old and partnered up with a guy for doing some improvements in remodeling. Unknowingly, he took a down payment and decided to blow it. He had a gambling problem. He led money to his brother, and when I found out, I did clear the phrase.
Mr. Kolch, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but
By that time,
we're having some audio issues. You're cutting in and out a little bit.
all right, how's this? A little better?
That is better, yes. All right, would you mind just starting over?
All right. So back in 2007, I was approximately 22 years old, partnered up with a guy doing some home remodeling contracting. He ended up in North County and took down payment. And weeks later, I went to the bank because we used to had a shared bank account. And I used the funds for other jobs that we had going on. The bank was negative.
Mr.
I was a
Kolch,
little concerned.
I'm sorry, it's just,
Found
it's still
out.
cutting.
I actually called. Yes.
It's still cutting in and out. Would you try just turning your video off for a little bit and seeing if that helps? I think we got most of it other than kind of the last sentence there.
How's that? A little better? Sorry.
So far, so good, yes.
All right. So what'd you guys hear last?
Going to the bank. You went down to the bank.
Went down to the bank, found out the bank account was negative, and I ended up reaching out to the authorities right away, telling them that Mr. Jeffrey, that was the partner I was with, has depleted the bank account and was unable to I was unable to get a hold of him. Well, by that time, the victim, I guess you want to call her, she already went to the authorities and made a claim against us for contractor fraud. And so that's how that all started with that. Being that we ended up going to court and Jeff was not willing to take he was not taking his responsibility on his behalf of what he did, I was put on and I had to hire an attorney, and I had limited funds at the time, being young, trying to start out. It was either move forward with him or do a public defender. And at that time, my wife was pregnant with my first child, and I didn't want to take the risk of missing the birth. So I ended up taking the plea deal of felony H. And I took the responsibility of paying the restitution. I was actually stuck with half, which I was fine with, just to keep everything moving forward. Well, I ended up paying the whole restitution because Jeff did not pay any that I was told. So I ended up paying the full 41,000 and some change back on my half, just to keep good faith and make sure that she had her money back, because I felt horrible of what has happened. Since then, I've been a contractor, got my license fully licensed in Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin, and I've been reaching out to all my clients and helping them to the fullest. I've always had good remarks every time I leave, and always good recommendations, and that's pretty much how I survive right now, is, on word of mouth. And I got more work than I can deal with right now. Pre-COVID, I had up to 16 employees. I was always really fair with all my employees. You know, granted, if they had a background, I always looked into them, and if I would take somebody with a felon or something like that just to make sure that they had a job, and they turned out to be better employees than some of them that didn't. So in that way, I've always tried to make right on my behalf, because I've always run into customers still to this day that have saying they got bad taste in their mouth from contractors because everybody's out there trying to screw them over. And it kills me. So, and the whole reason for reaching out to this, I guess, is I do have 2 children, and I really want to show a good example. And I was at a banquet with my son, and what really hit me was they were giving away sporting, equipment for raffles and stuff, and he ended up winning a 22 long rifle, and I had to go sign for it. And when I went to go sign for it, not thinking, I was denied, and I had to explain to him why, and why he wasn't able to bring it home. So that really put a toll to me. Not only that, but when I had my kids come home from school saying that they're in computer class and they Googled my name and saw a mugshot of myself on Google. So that really put a toll on me. But I'm married for 20 plus years and happily married and proud father of 2, and I want to move forward. I want to put this behind me, and I guess I'm open up for questions from there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Coolidge. Just one for me before I open up to the rest of the board. I've noticed that there were a couple of recent issues with your taxes. It looks like those have all been paid and sorted out. Could you just tell us a little bit about what was going on there?
So we had a bar and grill in Elkhorn, and I had got a little behind on the taxes on that just because they got out of hand. As far as between the house, we are flipping houses. I actually had a partner in Milwaukee was flipping houses, and the taxes kind of got out of hand because we ended up buying him out, and the taxes got put off to the side. But I did sell a property last year, and I cleared it all up, made sure everything was whole on the tax side.
Okay, great. Thank you. Noble, question from you.
Yes, I don't see you. Oh, are you still on the screen?
No.
Oh,
No.
we just had him
Hello?
turn
Oh.
his video off because of the audio issues.
Okay, how are you doing with the restitution? Has that been paid off on the original felony charge back in 2007, 2008?
That's been paid in full.
Pardon me?
That's been paid in full. Yes, it has.
All right, thank you.
I actually picked up Jeff Szynski's half of it as well.
Any other questions from board members? Jerry?
The judge in Walworth County who reviewed your case supports your application for pardon. How does that make you feel?
Well, to be honest with you, as of yesterday, I kind of lost faith in this process until I got a phone call from Neil yesterday, because I guess the emails have been going to my spam. And as I got off the phone, I called my wife and I told her I never had this feeling before. I kind of got lightheaded and I started shaking. I think I was more of anxiety and excited that this was even a possibility for me, if that helps answer the question.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I think we're good. Mr. Coolidge, thank you very much for your time today, and hope you enjoy the rest of your morning.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
All right, it looks like we have Ms. Schubert back.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We sure can. All right,
Okay.
great. Turn it over to you.
Okay, so my name is Aretha Shumpert. In a summary of my case, the first part of my case was failure to report receipt of income. That was the first charge. And then the second charge was a food stamp fraud. And this happened back into the late 1989. I guess I was charged in 1991. I served 9 months of Huber law. got out every day to go to work and to go home to see my children and then report back. I did 6 months of that. The other 3 months were good time, served as good time. I got good time to get off in 6 months. And after that, ever since then, I've been taking care of my sister who had a massive stroke and breast cancer, and just been volunteering, taking care of elderly people and trying to do the right thing to get this felony removed, because I have 2 grown children and 8 grandchildren and 2 great grandbabies. And I want to set forward a different lifestyle to show them that you can't get in trouble. And throughout my life, I have not ever had any problems with getting any jobs. I always been able to get a job. I always put down, if they ask, have you been convicted of a crime? I put yes, and I explain. So I have been actively working into the community, still hold a job to this day. Am looking forward to retire soon.
Oh, I think, Ms. Schumpert, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh,
Did I
got it.
lose? Okay.
I think just briefly, we heard that you're looking forward to retire soon, but I wasn't sure if you
Yeah,
had.
I sure am. And did you get the first part of what I said about my case, or you did not hear that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure if you had kept going after saying.
Yeah. Yes, after that, I said I have been able to find employment. I've never been without a job. My felonies have never stopped me from getting any job in the community of Milwaukee. I did get some traveling jobs that I traveled outside of the state of Wisconsin, but I didn't have a problem with that. I've never been out the country, so I didn't have to have a passport or anything. Still working and supporting my kids and grandkids and great grandbabies.
Excellent. So we'll just open up to questions from the board. I have one for you to get us started. There was just over $12,000 of restitution ordered in your case. Have you paid that restitution?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And do you have an idea of approximately when you paid it off?
I believe the food stamps was paid off some years ago. I'm not for sure about that. On the part of the $12,000, I did a chapter 13. So that was consolidated into that chapter 13. And I'm still making payments on that. But the food stamp fraud was a little less, so that was paid off. But for the $12,000, I'm still currently paying that off in the chapter 13.
Got it. Thank you. Other questions for Mr. or Ms. Schumpert?
Schumpert.
Schumpert, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right. Nothing else. We'll thank you for your time then, and you are free to enjoy the rest of the morning. You do not need to hang out with us in the Zoom.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And then our last applicant for our first morning session is LaShonda Murphy. Miss Murphy, I believe I saw you in the Zoom.
Yes, can you see me?
Yes, there we go. We'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. My name is LaShonda Murphy. I was convicted October 26, 2000 at the age of 29 for a Class C felony, prohibited possession of a firearm to a felon. I served 6 days, excuse me, in the House of Correction and provided my DNA. The judge at the time was trying to drop the charges down to a misdemeanor, but when we wrote the nursing board, my attorney and I, they said that the felony would not hinder my nursing license, meaning I could still pass meds, and it was up to the job discretion if they wanted to hire a felon or not. But since my conviction, I moved down to the state of Tennessee, and I have 5 daughters, 6 grandkids, and I've been married for 18 years. I'm a Girl Scout mom. In 2000, like I said, I received my LPN license, which was actually a couple months after the conviction. Then I went on in 2012 to receive my ADN, my associate's degree in nursing. As an RN, I worked as a director of nurses of a nursing home. I worked in hospitals. I'm a nurse educator. I was a director of a local nursing school in Tennessee. During that time, that's when I did a lot of mentorship to the young ladies and men that came through the school. They started out either as a CNA or a phlebotomist, or some of them were LPNs and went on to further their education. And I explained to them that, you know, I have this, which is embarrassing to have. I call it a disease. I have this disease that's a felon. And just because you have something, don't let it dictate your future. Learn from other people's mistakes, because it takes a village to raise a child. So I believe that from me teaching these young ladies and these young men this information and comforting them and guiding them and being compassionate to them, let them know that the world is not against you, that they went on to become productive citizens themselves. A lot of them went on to become a nurse practitioner, which is really good. What else have I done? I was a hospice nurse. I worked in a hospital, hospice nurse. I educate. I've done pretty much everything. I've been in nursing for 24 years. And like I said, I got my RN in 2012. I got my BSN in 2000. In 2020, during the COVID, I was over in Texas fighting COVID crisis. I was over there for 11 months, going back and forth to Tennessee to my family and, you know, taking care of the patients over there. And I saw a lot during that time that I was over in COVID, and it made me appreciate life as is. And I believe that as long as you put God first, you can do anything that you choose to. With this felon, it has made it somewhat difficult for me to go back to nursing school, because it's a process. When you have a charge on you, you have to go through this long process. So instead of me just going straight through, I have to explain myself as to why I have this. I don't want to be judged anymore. I work hard to prove who I am and let people know that my past is not who I am. And also, I've recently came back to Wisconsin within the past year. And I have, in Tennessee, I had compact license. Compact license are, I can go from state to state and state work. Because I have a felon here, they only gave me regular license. So I can't go and travel to other states anymore. So with this, I can go back to being my travel nurse. Whereas right now, I can't do that. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Certainly thank you for your travel nurse work during the pandemic. I know that that must have been very taxing on you and your family.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question for you before we open up to the rest of the board. I know that the charge you're seeking a pardon for today is possession of a firearm by a felon, but you were not a felon at the time that you were charged with this, correct? That was your, I believe, ex-boyfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
Got
Yes.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other board members, questions for Ms. Murphy? Reverend Hancock.
Ms. Murphy, I think I read in your application that you actually were involved in starting a hospice program in Tennessee. What was that like?
So that program, it was myself, my administrator, and my ADON. We were all involved I had an outside hospital involved with Methodist, and it was rewarding. So what we did was, when people come into our facility and they were actively dying, we had a group of people that would come, and we knitted these blankets like shawls, and we put their names on it, and we'll all stand around a bed, and then we'll tell the individuals, that person, what they meant to us in their lifetime. And we'll slowly watch them transition over, so no one leaves that patient bed there, because we have a lot of patients that don't have family, and when they transition by themselves. So that we were that added hand. It was the palliative care, and we had certain meds that we had to give them and everything. That was very rewarding for me. I also accomplished in the same facility, once I became a DON. We went from a 1-star from a 2-star to a 5-star facility. And I also won the Bronze Award, which is a national award for nursing homes.
Wow. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Thank-
Questions from other board members? All right, I think we are all set then. Thank you very much for your time this morning and hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So that is our last applicant from the first morning group. We are set to begin again at 10 with our second group, and we will just take a short break until 10 o'clock. Board members, I will ask you to mute yourselves and turn off your cameras and rejoin us around 9:59. All right, good morning. If you are just joining us, we are just preparing to pick back up our second morning session of the Governor's Pardon Advisory Board. And I am just going to make sure we have all our board members back before I do some introductions and housekeeping. All right, I think that is everyone. So good morning, all. My name is Mel Barnes. I'm Chief Legal Counsel to Governor Tony Evers and the Chair of the Pardon Advisory Board. I'll introduce my fellow board members to you and then go through a couple of housekeeping items about how the hearing will work today. With us on the Zoom, we have board members Anthony Cooper Sr., who is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Reentry Services for Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development. Mr. Cooper received a pardon from Governor Evers in January of 2021. We also have board member Reverend Jerry Hancock, who is the director of the Prison Ministry Project. He also previously served as a public defender, a deputy district attorney, and worked at the Department of Justice. We have board member Reverend John McVicker Sr., who is the founding pastor of Christ the King Baptist Church in Milwaukee, who also serves as board chairman for King's Academy Christian School and an associate chaplain for the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department. We have board member Nadia Perez Reyes, who is the assistant secretary for the Department of Children and Families and a previous state public defender and attorney for legal action of Wisconsin. And we have board member Noble Ray, who served with the Madison Police Department for nearly 28 years, including as chief of police from 2004 to 2013. He also led the U.S. Department of Justice's Policing Practices and Accountability Initiative and currently provides racial bias training for law enforcement agencies around the nation and the world. I'm going to go through just a couple of logistic items before we turn it over to hear from all of you today. Please note that this hearing is being live streamed today via Wisconsin Eye and YouTube, and we'll ask you to mute yourselves and turn off your video until it is your turn to be heard by the board. That will allow us to make sure we have good audio quality and that the board can focus on the person who is speaking. If you do run into any IT issues with the Zoom today, don't worry. Someone from my team will reach out to you and troubleshoot that. And if we need to come back to you in order to have your tech working, we will do that. Otherwise, we will call folks up in the order that is listed on the agenda in the open meetings notice, and we will spend about 5 minutes with each applicant. We'll ask you to spend the first 3 minutes of that time answering the questions that we sent to you in advance of today's hearing. As a reminder, that is asking you to 1, provide us with a brief summary of your offense that you're seeking a pardon for and how your sentence went. 2, giving us a brief summary of what you've done since the completion of your sentence, including community involvement and employment. And 3, telling us why you're seeking a pardon and why you believe the governor should grant you one. After you spend about the first 3 minutes answering those questions, we'll use the next 2 minutes of your time for the board to ask you any questions that they may have. Don't read too much into it if folks don't have questions for you. Sometimes everything is answered from your application materials and what you share with us today. But if folks do have questions, we want to make sure that they can get the information that they need in order to make a recommendation to the governor. Once we've heard from all our applicants, the board will meet in closed session and decide whether or not to recommend your application to the governor. You need a majority of board members present in support in order for your application to be sent to the governor. He will then decide to accept or reject your application. And either way, you will hear about the outcome of today's hearing in about a month or 2 from someone in my office. So just to know, you will not hear about the outcome of your pardon application today. I know that it has been a long process for several of you, but we'll ask for just a little bit more patience so that we can get our recommendations to the governor today. So once we call you up in the order list on the agenda, we'll have you unmute yourselves and turn on video so that everyone can hear you. And we will go ahead and get started with our first applicant, which is Noah Sprenger. Mr. Sprenger, are you with us in the Zoom? Mr. Sprenger, I can see a box with your name on it, but you look like you are muted.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't quite see you yet.
All right.
There we are.
Sorry.
No problem.
Brand new laptop. Okay. Am I good to start?
Yeah, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I guess first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak on my behalf. So I'll cut right down to it. Back in 2001, I was convicted of possession with intent to deliver as a party to a crime for THC, marijuana. At that time, I was barely 18 years old at the time of conviction. I received a sentence of 1 year probation. There was no jail or prison time. Some fines, and I was ordered to do a AODA class. I had completed all that. At the time when I was on probation, I had received an underage drinking citation, and in the beginning of the probation, I failed a UA. I was not revoked, but I did receive a PO hold for, I believe, 2 days for the underage drinking ticket, which part of my sentence was, if I would have successfully completed probation, that this felony would have went down to a misdemeanor. But due to the dirty UA and the underage drinking ticket, it didn't. So that's how my conviction went. Everything else was completed. Since then, let's see. Well, it's been about 20 years, so a lot has went on. No other criminal activity. But as far as employment, I've had multiple different kinds of jobs. Right after the conviction, it was, being only 18 years old as a felon. It was really tough getting a job. Ended up getting a job at a grocery store and a gas station was first job after that. First jobs after that. And then I went to a factory for a while in Waiwega. Having that felony was kind of like an anchor on me, especially, right after conviction. I got denied education college wise, because I was labeled as like a drug dealer. So no schools wanted me on campus. I tried to join the Army and they wouldn't take me because of the felony back then. After that, I had a couple of jobs, kind of like dead end jobs. I got my first real break for employment. And in 2014, I got a job at a paper lamination company. I was able to buy my own home. That ended due to the pandemic. I kind of got laid off from that. And then I went to a trucking company as a non-CDL driver. I drove a non-CDL box truck. And there was, due to the felony, there was some limitations of things that I could not do. They do deliver to prisons. Obviously, I could not do that. They have pickup spots from airports. I was allowed to pick up, but I could not drop off at airports because of my felony. And the kicker was to that, this was 2022. Up in 2022, they had sold to a different company. And the new company does not hire felons, so I had lost that job. Right now, up to this point, I'm working for a place called LabCorp. I drive around the state. I deliver and pick up medical specimens. It's an okay job. I have a little online business. It's like clothing and things that I sell. I have a 6-year-old daughter now. She's in school, gymnastics, it's family life. Let's see, I'm really nervous. So I'm asking the board for this pardon, for a few different reasons. Like I said, it's been a real anchor on me. I've been turned down for lots of things: housing, employment, education. Um, I have a job that I have a family member that works at Garda World, and due to my trucking experience, I could get a job there as a dispatch, not necessarily out in the field, but as a driver logistics dispatcher. But obviously, they have armored trucks. They don't hire felons. I'm currently working with a counselor at the Fox Valley Tech, because I want to get enrolled back in school, and I would there's some grants and financial assistance programs that I would be eligible to get if I would have more opportunity without the felony, obviously. So I had told him that I had this here. I had told him that I had this hearing, and we kind of put it on hold to see how that would go and what I could apply for. But other than that, I back then, I don't really know. I was just an adolescent kid. I don't even really remember who that kid was anymore. I'm 40 years old and I'm just trying to raise a daughter. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Springer. We'll open up to questions from the board. I have just one for you before we dive in, which is, do you hunt or have any guns in the home?
No, but that you did to bring that up. We live in a rural community, and on both sides, on my daughter's, on my side of the family, as well as her mother's, it is a hunting family. I myself can't participate, but I would like the opportunity to teach my daughter deer hunting. I think it's a father's job, and some of my best childhood memories were deer hunting with my father.
Okay, got it. But you don't own any guns currently?
No.
Okay. Other questions from the board for Mr. Springer? None? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Springer. I appreciate your time with us today and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next applicant is Mr. Matthew Knight. Mr. Knight, we are ready to hear from you.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Matthew Knight, and back in March of 2011, I committed some very serious crimes. I was charged and sentenced with burglary and driving without consent, party to a crime. I used to use every excuse possible as to why I did the things I did that night and why things happened, but a long time ago, I accepted the fact that the only thing or person responsible for any of that was me and my actions alone. I was charged with or sentenced to 1 year in county jail with work release, 5 years of probation, fines and restitution. I would say that the sentence went well, really well, as far as the criminal sentence goes. I had started a job 9 months prior to my sentencing date at Allen Edmonds Shoe Company in Port Washington. And throughout my entire sentence, I maintained employment there all the way up until the COVID-19 pandemic. But in jail and out on work release, I had no incidents whatsoever, no issues. I got out of jail, continued with my probation for 5 years. Same thing, no issues whatsoever. I was never even put on a single PO hold. I did pay all of my fines and restitution within the timeline that was given for me to do so. In order to be discharged from probation, I had to come up with a lump sum of money to finish paying off the restitution, which I did, and I got off on time. So after my sentence, I continued to work at Allen Edmonds. The pandemic hit and non-essential businesses shut down. Eventually, I was permanently let go. So I applied for a ton of jobs, struggled to even hear back from most. A few rejection emails did come in. Finally, I got a job. It was entry level, not making the amount of money that I had been, but I took it. Kept applying for other jobs I thought I was qualified for. Same thing, didn't hear back from most, few rejection emails, but I finally got a few phone calls. The people I talked to, I disclosed my whole story to, and one person decided to bring me in further for interviews, and this was a job that had matched my skill set, I thought, and the wage I had been making. So I worked there for about 9 months before I was eventually called back by my former employer, Allen Edmonds, who offered me a promotion if I would come back. So I took that, and I've been there the last 2.5 years. Outside of my normal job responsibilities, I am involved with a committee that we partner with United Way for a 6-week fundraiser every September through October. It's very rewarding. We put together different events to raise money, along with food drives, toy drives. We do an Adopt a Child program where they, teens in need will give us a list of things they need, whether it's boots or jackets, gloves. We also do out in the community, different shelters and stuff like that that need upkeep, yard work, painting. 2 years ago, we rebuilt an entryway, benches, and painted a women's shelter in Ozaukee County. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to give back to the community through my employer. I got married in 2017 and have since had 2 beautiful children, and they are the main reason that I'm here today. I want to be involved in everything they're a part of as they grow up, and whether that's volunteering with them, chaperoning, field trips, coaching t-ball, high school sports. Amongst that and growth in my career or other opportunities, I feel that the question said, why do you think you should receive a pardon? And I would go back to my entire sentence I completed without any issues whatsoever, jail, probation, fines, restitution. And since that one night when I was 18, turning 19, I have had no criminal activity or anything like that whatsoever. And regardless of the decision that's made here on my request, I'm so grateful that this day finally came and I'm able to be heard. And I appreciate the work that the Pardon Board does to give people like me hope.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Appreciate that. Any questions from the board? Noble.
Yes, Mr. Knight, thanks for being here. At the time of the offense, it indicates that you were intoxicated to the point where you could not remember committing the offense. Have you received any treatment?
I have not received any clinical treatment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? None? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Knight. Appreciate your time this morning and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Jonas, Mark Jonas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How is everybody today?
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah, I was convicted of receiving stolen property back around in 1994 on intent to resell it. I was convicted to 5 years in prison and was sent to Waupun, and from Waupun they sent me over to Deerfield Thompson Correctional Institute, where at that time I was got on the programs of actually maintaining the garage for the state, including the warden's vehicles, all the staff's vehicles. I headed up the reconstruction of the old Thompson intake buildings for the inmates that showed a lot more positive attitudes of work release. And I was a driver at my whole time there. I took inmates down to Old World, Wisconsin, where we replaced all the fences. I was responsible for taking all the inmates for haircuts. I was on the chainsaw crew. I worked about 18 hours a day from the day I got there. At 17 cents an hour, I left there in 2 years with about $1,718. I'm asking for the pardon for my dad's had a lot of positive outlook for me, and I'm 68 years old right now. I was sentenced in my 20s, and the taking over his business. He's 89 years old, and he turned me let me take it over about 20 years ago. And being a felon, we lost few government accounts like FedEx and USPS. I would surely like to get that going again. Community involvement, I've been involved with numerous church groups, do a lot of charity work, give to charities. And that's kind of the whole thing in a nutshell for me. I was just hoping and praying that there would be the great governor of the state of Wisconsin, the pardon board, and the people of the state of Wisconsin could find some forgiveness so I could move forward with a better life.
Thank you, Mr. Jonas. I'll open up to questions from the board. Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Jonas, can you tell us about the crime? I read the application and the criminal complaint, and it was a little confusing. Can you tell us about what you were doing when you got in trouble?
I actually bought some stolen property to resell it and was convicted of that. It was part of the Milwaukee Outlaws were stealing the stuff, as I found out. And one of the people that actually bought one of the items, they actually turned us all in.
And what's the business? What does Jonas Builders? What's your business?
We have about 3.5 million square feet of commercial real estate in Milwaukee. It's all mostly cold storage. So when we had USPS and FedEx, it was just cold storage that we were handling for them. About 100,000 square feet at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Jonas? All right. Thank you for your time, Mr. Jonas. Appreciate it. And you do not need to hang out with us on the Zoom. You're welcome to enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Mr. William Lovelace. Mr. Lovelace, are you on the Zoom?
Yes, I am.
Here we go. We'll turn it over to you.
Hi, hello. My name is William Lovelace. Back in 1995, I was convicted of operating without owner's consent, and then I did a little bit of time in the county jail, was released on probation, was charged again with operating without owner's consent, and party to a crime, burglary. At the time of these convictions, I was kind of mentally unstable. I had lost my mother when I was a little bit younger, so I kind of was forced to move with my father and his family, which were my half brother and sister. And I kind of was lost without a path to go on. You know, I was a mother's baby. I was the mama's boy. So I kind of took it very hard and was just mentally lost. I kind of said at the point of it happening that I didn't care what happened to me. I'm just going to live and enjoy life the way I enjoy it. Whatever happens, happens. So hanging out with friends, I committed these crimes, was sentenced. And then when I got the burglary charge, I was sentenced to a year up north in Dodge. And being locked in that prison cell for, the first month for 23 hours a day, and then being locked in prison for a year straight with guys every day, being just that strict routine of not being able to live life and do as you wanted, I kind of realized that's not the path I wanted to be on anymore. So when I was released into a halfway house, I had to do drug and alcohol counseling. And because at the time I was young, I was drinking, I was smoking weed, I was running the streets, growing up low income. I kind of just lived on the streets with my friends and family. So after my conviction, I was out trying to find jobs, any odd jobs I can get, being a felon, which was very hard to get. I ended up dating someone who ended up pregnant with my daughter. And then that was the point of my life where I realized that I had to change my whole life because I didn't want to be who I was and I didn't want to live that path no more. So I spent the rest of my years after that just continually trying to find a better job and a good job that I could support my family. So being a felon, it was hard because, they don't trust you. They don't believe in you. So I basically just bounced around through many jobs to try to find something that fit me and fit my lifestyle. And as far as the community, I don't do a lot in my community. I try to help out my neighbors and friends around me that are around. Most of my time, if I have free time, is I help my family. I come from two very huge families. Anytime aunties or uncles or cousins or relatives, sisters, brothers call me, I'm there. I'm the carpenter. I'm the mechanic. I'm the all-around fix-it guy. So I spend a lot of my time doing that. I'm with a company now that I really like. I went back to school a few years ago and got my associate's degree, which is a first for my family and my parents, of actually going to college and getting the degree to just try to prove to my kids that regardless of the things you do in your past, you can continually work to progress and make yourself better and prove that you're a better person than who you were. I made those mistakes as an ignorant child, and I'm trying to just further my path and be able to allow myself to join the family and certain traditions and things that they have that I'm not allowed to be being a felon.
Thank you, Mr. Lovelace. Questions from the board? None? All right. I think that might have covered it then. Thank you very much, Mr. Lovelace. Appreciate your time this morning and you sharing with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Right. Next, we will hear from Mr. Jafar Banda. Mr. Banda, are you in the Zoom with us? Mr. Banda, I see a square with your name on it, but we cannot hear or see you. All right, we will come back to Mr. Banda if someone from my team can reach out and try to do some tech troubleshooting for him. In the meantime, we will move on to Mr. William Young IV.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. How are you guys doing today?
Great. How are you?
I am okay. I end up getting convicted with felony. I believe it was in 2001. In 99, I want to say 99, 2000. A friend of mine called me while I was at work asking if I could run him to his place of employment because he left his book bag at work for school for the following day. So I proceeded to take him to work, waited outside. Then he comes out with his bag and I pull off. Then halfway home, because he was also my roommate at the time, he told me he took money, coins, everything from work told me how he did it, set it up. By then it was too late, went along with it. Following morning, Greenfield Police Department came to the house. He was already at school. I was taken in, questioning. He was also brought in, and we eventually had our court date. While in the court date, I went and got my lawyer, get into court, and unfortunately I was convicted of a felony. I believe it was party to a crime. So after that, I was also, I believe it was 2 years probation I had. I completed my probation. I think I did have one PO hold for underage drinking, I believe. I was at a party. I was in there for a day or two, released. And then from then, I've been working. I've actually been lucky to where the felony hasn't prevented me from obtaining and keeping a job. I was at one place for about 20 plus years. I decided to kind of retire from that, and I moved on to another place I'm working at now. Been here about 6 months now. Job that I plan on retiring from, which is a plus for me. In that time, I've gotten married back in 2008. I have 4 children. The only thing that the felony kind of almost prevented me from was actually going on a couple field trips with my children, because they do background checks, especially for my son that's special needs. But being in the state of mind where I was in, where taking care of them and everything else, they allowed me to be able to go on a field trip with them. Other than that, since then, I have done some fundraisers that I've helped out at before the pandemic and after. I actually didn't know this was an option for a pardon until I've actually made friends with a couple city officials down in Milwaukee County that told me it was an option, as well as a couple police officers from the job I was in for the 20 years. So I decided, let's see if I can get a second chance. So that's when I went ahead and applied for the pardon back in July of 22, I believe I did. But like I said, ever since then, I've just been working a couple jobs at a time, security here and there. Right now, I do shuttle driving after my main job right now. Leaving the job profession I was in kind of put me behind a little bit. So I spend most of my time just working, camping with the kids, trying to keep busy, giving them the best life I can possibly give. Like I said, it hasn't prevented me from doing much, but I did have my daughter come up to me when a friend of mine came over after deer hunting, and she said that's something she would like to do. I'm not big into hunting and, the gun thing or anything else like that. So I figured if this is something that I can possibly get away from, I would like to have my buddy kind of teach her these things while I'm present. And I just don't want to be around it. And I'm a felon, someone has a gun, things like that. It's just something that I'm not keen to.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Do we have any questions from board members for Mr. Young? Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Young, I think you explained that you really didn't know what your roommate was going to do when he went in and committed the burglary. But in the complaint, it says that the two of you planned the burglary to pay the rent on your apartment.
No, he actually told me the reason he did it was because he didn't have his half of the rent. I told him in that ride home that I could have covered his half of the rent at the time, but it was nothing that I had part in with the plan. He told me that he took the forklift, put it underneath the rear garage door, to make it look like someone used the forklift to raise the door. Stuff. There was never any planning on my part of the situation. I actually read that when I went down to the courthouse to receive all the paperwork that I needed to send to the pardon office. So I didn't know all of that was actually in the form until I read it firsthand when I initially picked it up back in 2022. But me myself, I didn't help plan that at all.
And the judge in Milwaukee County that reviewed your pardon application supports it. How does that make you feel?
That Judge Wagner supports it.
Well, it may not have been Judge Wagner. It was every application we send to a judge, and whatever judge in that county takes a look at it.
Okay, so he's just supported it as in like a go ahead wise? Like, I don't understand. Okay, I'm grateful. I'm definitely very grateful for it. Like I said, for me, this would be a second chance. You know, I mean, technically, I mean, I feel I had a second chance by not having to serve jail time. You know, I did my probation, things like that. But for me, being at the age, I'm 43 years old. I don't like trouble, period. I'm a big family man. All I do is work. But to hear that a judge actually was for it, that actually makes me feel good, especially in a time like now where I just lost my stepdad and things like that. So this right here is, even if it doesn't go through, is just, I'm grateful that you guys took the time to actually hear me out and let me speak today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Any other questions from the board? All right. In that case, well, thank you for your time today and hope that you enjoy the rest of your morning.
All right. I appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
Thank you. You too. All right. And then I believe we have tech issues with Mr. Banda sorted out. There we are.
Mic check.
Yes, working.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it so much. I think it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me since being released.
Excellent. Well, we'll turn it over to you to address those 3 questions we sent you in advance. Just let me know if you'd like me to repeat them.
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the 3 questions again? Sorry about that.
No problem. We're just going to ask you to spend about 3 minutes speaking to these, and then we'll see if the board has any follow-up questions for you. But we're going to ask you to start with a brief summary of the offense you're seeking a pardon for and how your sentence went. And then number 2, a little bit about what you've done since the completion of your sentence, like any community involvement or employment. And then number 3, a brief statement about why you're seeking a pardon today and why you think the governor should grant you one.
Okay. I was arrested for possession intent to deliver heroin. And before I even was sentenced, I had completed some ALDA programs while I was incarcerated at the House of Correction called Beat the Streets. I wanted to learn how to beat the streets, like how to overcome these drug problems and how to get away from being around people, rather than it's my family and friends. You know, I was trying to figure out an escape route, you know, mentally before I was even released. So the judge took that in consideration and had sentenced me to ALDA. And I also had got my HSCD while I was incarcerated, and the judge had took that in consideration, Honorable Kevin Martins. And when I was sentenced, the judge had gave me school release, so I was able to go to college and greater my education. So I had opportunity to, you know, go to school, and I was able to get out with some stability. Like, I had my financial aid check. I never even had cash until I got released and things like that. So I had a schedule, so it kind of helped me stay out of trouble. So it was a successful program that he had me in, because I was in a program called CJRC. The county had where I had intense ALDA inpatient care, and I had school release as well. And I was able to successfully complete, you know, my supervision as well. I had never dropped dirty or anything like that. And I had did community service. I was volunteering for the American Federation Teacher Union Local 212. And I was working on issues that concern students. And, you know, at that time, you know, when I was released, you know, it was a lot of attacks towards education cuts. So as I got involved, Scott Walker ended up destroying the Pardon Advisory Board. So I just kind of took it upon myself to fight to reinstate it, because I felt that like this may be an issue that may hinder me someday, because I may graduate and not be able to get a job in my field because of this felony. So I want to fight to have my rights back someday. So when I had went to UW Milwaukee, I was a student leader, and I had created my own organization called Community Uprise to fight to reinstate the Pardon Advisory Board. So I'm so happy that the Pardon Advisory Board is here and is even considering my felony for a pardon. So as a student leader, I fought to reinstate the Pardon Advisory Board, and I graduated with a bachelor's for community engagement and education. And since I've been released, I have done everything I possibly can to better myself. And I noticed that I have a lot of barriers because of this felony. Like I can't run for public office. I can't even get a job for Milwaukee Public Schools. And I have a bachelor's in education. You know, I should be teaching right now. And I can't do it because of this felony record. And at the time, I can say that, you know, I was battling drug problems. I come from a big family. My mama had 12 kids, so I've been in poverty like all my life. And the only way, you know, I felt I can escape poverty is through education. And, you know, education, you know, leads to careers, and it's a lot of careers I can't even get because of this felony record. So, you know, I'm trying my best to better myself, and I don't want to have to continuously being punished for doing something good.
Thank you, Mr. Banda. I want to open it up to questions from the board. Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Banda, the judge in Milwaukee County who reviewed your application supports it. How does that make you feel?
Wow, that makes me feel really good. To be honest with you, when I was listening to you speak with the previous applicant, I'm looking like, wow, the judge had made a recommendation. I hope the judge make a recommendation in my case, because I did everything the judge said.
Good, thank you.
Other questions? I just had one for you, Mr. Banda. I saw you were not charged, but you had a 2015 arrest. Could you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Actually, I can even show you a little bit more about what had happened. I would try to pull it up. Yeah, I pretty much was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. I didn't do anything wrong, which is why I didn't get charged with it at all. But I have a letter from I'm trying to find it really quick. I had a letter from the district attorney that I was going to try to give you to show you that I didn't do anything wrong, and you know, I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. The district attorney had wrote a letter in regards about that.
Okay.
And I wish I could pull up on the letter. I may have it on my work phone, because the job I work at now, they had needed a letter from the district attorney to hire me. So I may have it on my work phone. This is my personal phone. But basically, the district attorney did write a letter about that. And when I was released, the reason I didn't include it in my part is when I was released, my lawyer had just told me just to move on my life, and I didn't have to worry or think about that. Then the job had a situation where they couldn't hire me because of that. So then I had to get a letter from the district attorney. So that's why I didn't include it with my partner, because I was just thought that, you know, because I didn't do anything wrong at all. Once again, wrong place at the wrong time. And I don't even know how I got caught up in that myself either, but I can say probably wrong place at the wrong time, but I didn't do anything wrong at all. And I shouldn't even have been there in the first place, to tell you the honest God truth. I should never even have been arrested in the first place. So the good news is, you know, justice well served, and you know, I don't know what else I can do to get that off my record, you know, because I seen that the employer that hired me then, they had me get a letter from the district attorney explaining that. Now I wish I could have had pulled that letter up too. I wish I had thought about that. But you asked a really good question.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing something about that. Any other questions from the board?
When would I get a decision?
You can expect to hear from us in about a month or two, which I know feels like a long time after you've been waiting, but the board will meet in closed session after we hear from all the applicants today, and then make a recommendation for the governor. But it looks like no other questions from the board for you. So I think we can thank you for your time this morning, Mr. Banda.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Have a good morning. All right, our next applicant is Austin Herbst. Mr. Herbst, do we have you? There we are.
Nope. Hi. First off, I want to thank you guys for hearing me out today. And so I'm here today to seek a pardon for two crimes that I committed roughly 16 years ago when I was 18 years old. The first of it, which would be a felony theft of movable property, which was due to the fact that I took a firearm from my grandpa's house without his permission. In the same incident, I was charged with resisting an officer, possession of drug paraphernalia, and carrying a concealed weapon. The last two were dismissed, and I was charged and convicted of the first two. The second is a felony bail jumping charge I received roughly 4 months after the first incident. In October, I was charged and convicted. I was under the influence of heroin while at school, and when police arrived, I had heroin in my pocket. I was also charged with possession of narcotics and possession of drug paraphernalia at that time, but those two charges were dismissed. For these two cases, I was sentenced to 3 years probation with 12 months of my sentence to be served in jail as a condition of probation. So while I was incarcerated, I earned my HSED while I was actually in jail. And then throughout my probation, I completed an inpatient and outpatient AODA classes. And then I completed my probation in December of 2011. Since the completion of my sentence, I ended up being really big into health and fitness and just bettering myself in general. I've held a job consistently. I became a licensed pesticide applicator for Wisconsin, and I maintain lawns for a living shortly after my release. And then a couple years later, I was offered an opportunity to switch jobs. And I was working at a company called Meek Surfacing, installing playground safety surfacing at schools, and stuff like that, churches, parks, and I traveled all over the country doing that. I worked my way up to a foreman position of a 4-man crew. And then a few years ago, in 2021, I decided that I didn't want to travel for work anymore. So I became a member of Local 601 Steamfitters Union. I tested, passed my AccuPlacer test, and got in at JM Brennan. And I've been working there ever since. I'm a third-year apprentice now. I'm currently back in school at MATC for trade-related education. I maintain high grades now. I believe I should earn a pardon because I'm not the same person I was when I was 18. When I was 18, I was doing drugs. I was depressed. I didn't really care about the world or believe the world cared about me. I made terrible decisions that have made my life substantially harder to navigate than the average person. But even so, I pushed through all that and consider that I've made a pretty good life. I have a fiance and a 5-month-old daughter that mean the world to me, and I'm really seeking this pardon for them, so that I can provide the best I possibly can for them. I've been really unable to work in certain places in the career that I currently have due to my felonies, such as like the NIC unit at a hospital or the federal courthouse and places like that. Luckily, that hasn't affected my job as of now. Things have been busy, so there's other places I can go to work. But I guess my only concern is that that may not always be the case. If work gets slow and I'm not able to go certain places, that could put me out of a job temporarily, at least. And I don't like the fact that I'm limited because of decisions I made as a teenager. Honestly, at the end of the day, as much as I'd like this pardon, it's not going to change my life significantly. I'm going to continue to do what I need to do for myself and my family. It just being a little bit easier would be very beneficial to me. There's no excuse for what I did when I was 18 years old. I can't go back and change it, and I would just really like a second chance. That's about all I have. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to me, and can't wait to hear about the decision.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst. Any questions from the board? All right, I think that covered everything for us then. Thank you, Mr. Herbst. Really appreciate your time this morning, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you. All right, so I know that we have been having some issues getting Ms. Thomas on the line. So I think we will go right ahead to Mr. Chadwick Schoonover, who I do believe we have in the Zoom. There we are. Mr. Schoonover, am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes, you are.
Excellent. Great news. All right, we'll turn it over to you.
I just want to start out. I am in Pachuca, Mexico, on a project. So if I drop off, I apologize. Wi-Fi and cellular data down here is not very good. Today I'm before you asking for a pardon for my job. I was recruited by a global company to be the South American service manager. Approximately 26 years ago, I was involved in I think 2 burglaries, 2 felony charges. I was 18 years old. At that time, I already been in the military for a year. I joined the day I turned 17. In the end, it was a choice that I made, and I had to accept and take the consequences from it. I received 2 years in, 3 years probation. I was released after a year on good behavior, and I completed 3 or 4 years of the probation successfully without incident. As far as the impact on the business, I never got to speak to that person by the time that things were done and over with, and I could apologize or speak with the victims. They were no longer part of that business, and I could not locate them. How do I say this? I've had no subsequent criminal matters. My life has been clean since then. The day I was released, I was transported back to Winnebago County for some old fines I had. I had to sit a few days before I could actually technically be released. And my father picked me up. And I walked out of that place. I said to him, I said, I'm never coming back. And some years ago, my father sat me down and he goes, Chad, you remember when you walked out of that place? And he goes, and you told me you were never coming back? I said, yep. He goes, well, I said to myself in my mind, I'll bet every dollar in my 401k that you would be back into the system. He goes, and you proved me wrong. Since then, I've dove into my work. I'm a self-made man. I don't have any higher education, but I have worked my way up through it through hard work. Nobody's put a ladder up there for me. But I do now work for a global company called Raceline and Associates. I was recruited to be the South American service manager. I've traveled in East Asia for 5 years, South America for 5, and a year in Europe. And today I'm before you asking for a pardon because part of this is having that off my record so that way I can continue in my professional career. My father passed away last December, just before Christmas, from cancer. And part of this is for him and for me. This was a goal of ours to get this removed. And just a note for the parole board, I have no interest in owning guns or possessing guns. This is strictly to take my professional career to the next level.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonover. Questions from the board? Reverend Hancock.
The judge and district attorney in Winnebago County reviewed your application for a pardon, and both the judge and the DA support your application. How does that make you feel?
Sense of accomplishment that I was able to turn my life around and never become part of that system ever again. It makes me feel very good that I did something with that lesson in my life. and I turned it around.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Noble.
Now, let me see if I can pronounce your name correctly. Is it Schoonover?
Schoonover.
Schoonover.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a question, and it's not required, but we do tend to ask this from time to time. You know, given that you've had some time since your offense and you've worked at a place and seem to have done well, and at your place of employment, at a minimum, a little surprised that at least, you know, looking at it, that you had no letters of support. It's not required, but was there any reason for that?
So yes, two reasons. I put a lot of thought into this. At the time when my lawyer submitted the application, I was living in South America for a year and a half, and he actually submitted it without the letters. And I was like, okay, what do we do? You know, and he's like, well, the application's in already. But in the end, I could ask anybody to write a letter of recommendation, and I could ask them to put words on paper, but really the person standing before you says a lot what he did with his life. You know, the two people that I was going to ask to write letters for was one, my father, which he was proud to do. And the second person would have been my mentor that actually started me in this business 20 years ago, Kerry Lindauer. And he currently works for the company that I do work for now. And we are still great friends. And those would have been the two people I would have asked to write letters for me. But that's why you don't have those letters. And I apologize.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your response.
No, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Hearing none, I think that answers all our questions then. Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Schoonover, and appreciate your commentary here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you as well.
Thank you. All right, and then I know we were having some trouble tracking down Ms. Thomas. Ms. Thomas, are you with us on the Zoom today? All right, I think not. So we will see what we can do about reaching out to her and figuring out if we can add her to another hearing. That concludes our morning session then. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to move the board into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85 sub 1 sub A, D, and F for purposes of deliberations concerning cases before the board, considering specific applications and considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories of specific persons. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Noble, do I have a second? Anthony, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. At this point, the board will move into closed session, and I'll ask board members to give us just a moment to get the live stream shopped and move everyone back. All right, looks like we have everybody in from the waiting room. So Eric, will you just let me know once the live stream has started?
It shows that the live stream has started.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Schroeder. Erica is also a staff member on my team. I didn't mean to call on you.
Okay.
We just want to make sure it's up and running on YouTube.
Okay, thank you.
We are live on YouTube.
Great. Thank you, other Eric. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Mel Barnes. I am the governor's chief legal counsel and the chair of the Pardon Advisory Board. We'll get started here. I'm going to introduce my fellow board members. I'll go through a couple of housekeeping items on how this afternoon will run, and then we will get down to hearing from all of you. So with me on the Zoom today, fellow board members include Anthony Cooper Sr., who is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Reentry Services for Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development. Mr. Cooper received a pardon from Governor Evers in January 2021. We also have Reverend Jerry Hancock, who is the director of the Prison Ministry Project. He previously served as a public defender, a deputy district attorney, and an administrator for the Department of Justice's Division of Law Enforcement Services. We also have Reverend John McVicker Sr., who is the founding pastor of Christ the King Baptist Church in Milwaukee. He also serves as the board chairman for King's Academy Christian School and is an associate chaplain for the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department. We also have board member Nadia Perez Reyes, who is the assistant secretary for the Department of Children and Families. She also worked as a state public defender and as an attorney for Legal Action of Wisconsin previously. And finally, we have board member Noble Ray, who served with the Madison Police Department for almost 28 years, including as chief of police from 2004 to 2013. Mr. Ray also led the U.S. Department of Justice's Policing Practices and Accountability Initiative and currently provides racial bias training for law enforcement agencies around the nation and the world. Those are our board members today. And before we get down to hearing from each of you, I will just go through a couple of items of logistics. The first is to note that today's hearing is being live streamed on Wisconsin Eye and YouTube. We will ask everyone to please mute themselves and keep their video off until it is your turn to be heard by the board. That will just allow us to make sure we have good quality audio and that the board can focus on the person who is presenting. If you do run into any IT issues with the Zoom, please don't worry about it. Someone from my team will reach out to you and do some troubleshooting. And if you're not ready due to tech issues, when it's your turn, we will just come back to you once those issues are resolved. Otherwise, we will call people up in the order listed on the agenda and the open meetings notice. Each applicant will have about 5 minutes total to be heard by the board. We'll ask you to spend the first 3 minutes of that time answering the questions that were sent to you in advance of today's hearing. As a reminder, those are 1, giving us a brief summary of your offense that you're seeking a pardon for and how your sentence went. 2, a brief summary of what you've done since the completion of your sentence, including community involvement, education, anything like that. And 3, a brief statement of why you're seeking a pardon and why you believe the governor should grant you one. After you spend about 3 minutes addressing that, we'll open it up to questions from the board. Don't read too much into it if people have questions or don't. Sometimes everything is covered in your written materials in your presentation today, but if board members do have questions, we want to make sure that they have all the information that they feel like they need to make a recommendation to the governor. Once the board is done asking you questions, you're welcome to sign off and leave the Zoom hearing. And once everyone has been heard, the board will meet in closed session to decide whether or not to recommend your application to the governor. You need a majority support of board members present in order to have your application go to the governor. He will then decide to grant or reject your application. And either way, you will hear from our office in about a month or 2 from today's hearing regarding the outcome. So we will go ahead and start with our afternoon group of applicants. First up is Mr. Christopher Words. Mr. Words, if you are in the Zoom, we are ready to hear from you. Oh, Mr. Words, if that is you on the Samsung, we cannot hear you.
How about now?
Yes, we can. All right, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher B. Words Sr. And I'm here today to ask for a pardon. I was charged with possession with intent to deliver. I pled guilty to possession of THC. I'm sorry, I did not go into that detailed part about it. But I had done 6 months while I was waiting for bail, and then I was bailed out after 6 months' time. When I went to court, I did plead guilty to possession of THC, and I was given time served for the 6 months that I had done, and I was charged. My $1,000 bail was surrendered. I'm currently not employed. I've been disabled and been going through some disabilities since 2003. self-medicated was part of the THC usage on my behalf. And at the time, as I say, I'm currently not employed because I am disabled. I do receive SSI. Prior to the pandemic, however, even though those things had been taking place, I was heavily involved with my church, choir director for the children's choir with my church. I was in charge of the recreation and youth activities for the children as well. I've coached all three of my children's basketball teams. I have two girls and a boy. And like I said, I was blessed to be able to coach all of their teams, even at the same time. And that was something I've been able to enjoy as well. Uh, just being a full-time parent and looking forward to the next chapter of my life and what things may come with it as far as a pardon. I am asking for this pardon because I would like to show others, not only my kids, but other people as well, that you can make mistakes in your life. You can own up to them. You can atone for them to the extent that you're being asked to atone for them by society, and be able to one day say that you've done those things. You've been 14 years since with no police contact. I've been able to be involved in the community and my family since those things. And I feel those are some of the points that lead to me being deserving of a pardon. I've matured even further as a citizen, as a parent, and as someone who is looking to contribute even further in a positive way to my community and my family.
Thank you, Mr. Words. I'll open it up to questions from the board. Any questions for Mr. Words? Jerry, did I see your hand? Oh, yes. Okay.
Mr. Words, there was a 2020 harassment restraining order granted against you. What was that all about?
That 2020 restraining order, I've recently been divorced and recently went through a divorce. My ex-wife does have some mental health issues, and there were some disagreements at that moment that we had. That order was granted as a temporary, but from the moment we went back to court for that injunction, it was thrown out due to not having any merit.
And the judge in Milwaukee County that reviewed your application for a pardon supports it. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good. And to be honest, sir, it reminds me of part of the sentencing process that I went through. The state was asking for an additional 9 months. And part of the discussion with Judge Borowski is he understood part of the self-medication. He understood part of the statements that I made at that time, and he knew where my heart was. And he said that he felt remiss about having to even carry out a sentence due to some of the extra things that had come up in the court case. So it makes me feel happy, and I honestly expected and hoped for it, and I just look forward to not letting him down as well.
All right, thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for Mr. Words? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Words. Appreciate your time this afternoon, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Our next applicant is Michael Burton. Mr. Burton, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. My name is Mike Burton. I'm here asking for a pardon for a 2003 conviction for selling of stolen property. You know, as far as the conviction went, I think I did 5 years of probation. I was able to, you know, be in good standings for the entire duration. The probation officer that supervised me had me on the maximum visiting, like every 2 weeks is what I saw him. And I think there were some employment hurdles in the beginning, but I successfully completed my restitution and my probation with the courses that were recommended. There wasn't much of a problem with any of the you know, state supervision following the conviction. Does that kind of cover everything that you're looking for as far as the first question goes?
Yes, I think it does.
The second question was, you know, a brief summary of what you have done since the completion of your sentence. You know, this was 21 years ago. I'll be 39 in August. It's a long time, and you know, I guess the quickest way to explain it, you know, you could call it like a complete life transformation. I'm not anywhere near what I was then. As a teenager, you know, now I've been married. I have 2 kids. Starting at you know, at the age almost 15 years ago now, I kind of started pursuing uh, you know, exercise and fitness to kind of try to escape some of the things that, you know, there was some substance abuse, you know, in my teenage years, in my early 20s. And I recognized it, and I always kind of wanted to get away from it. And fitness was kind of an escape for me. So I started pursuing that almost 15 years ago now. And in that 15-year time span since I started, yeah, I've competed in different various, you know, fitness, CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting and things like that. I've been employed by probably 8 different gyms at this time. And I now own my own gym over off of Rimrock Road, Great State Fitness. We've been open for about 6 years now. I have an 8-year-old son, and I actually just recently had a daughter. She's 2 months old. Got married about a year and a half ago. There's a lot, you know, there's a lot of things that have happened since then, but I guess, you know, like I said in the beginning, um, I think, you know, those are visible things that you can see that I have been doing. And they're also kind of proof of me leaving behind like a previous life, because you can't own a gym and you can't be in fitness and you can't compete in fitness while maintaining substance abuse issues. It just doesn't work like that. And so I think maybe even some of the harder things to recognize are just my growth as an individual. It's still something that, you know, I, you know, look back and it's hard to imagine that life used to be so much different than it is now. You know, being a dad and having everything on my plate, I can't even, it's hard, it's just hard to wrap your head around. So that's, you know, those are just a few of the things that have changed for me in the last 20 years. The third, you know, a brief statement about why I think I should receive a pardon. Yeah, you know, just to summarize, I just feel like I'm not that that wasn't me. It never was. I was very confused. I struggled a lot as a kid, academically, socially, and it kind of just led me down a path that put me in some places where I never really would have imagined that I've been. And I have made a complete transformation. And it, you know, there's a lot of people that meet me through business and other things like that at the gym. You know, that, you know, there's 2 groups: people that know me on the business front and people that know me from growing up. And it's a constant, you know, people are kind of constantly blown away that that used to kind of be like a part of things. And you know, like some of the certification, you know, I think it was about 2 years ago. I did a lot of youth athletic development, and that was just suspended temporarily by USA Swimming because of the felony conviction. And so I lost some things, that kind of stung, as even having made mistakes and having kids myself and fully understanding why people take those precautions, kind of stung to think that people thought that like I shouldn't be around their kids. And so I did an interview with them, and I was cleared, and I've started back doing youth development. But that's just one example. There's a lot of different certifications. I'm in the process of trying to get a real estate license, and I'm kind of constantly trying to learn new things in the financial business world, and there's a lot of stuff that I would like to pursue. So as far as livelihood and work goes, I'd just like to not have it the smudge, the mark on my record, and be able to move forward and kind of officially put it behind me. I'm a different person, and I would also like the opportunity for my family and for my kids, because I think I can do better for them, leaving this behind for good.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. I just want to see if board members have any questions for you.
Sure.
Any questions for Mr. Burton? All right. Hearing none, I think you covered everything. So thank you very much for your time today, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Mr. Daniel Crownhart. Mr. Crownhart.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Crownhart.
Hello.
There we are.
Yep. It took me a minute.
No problem.
As for what I did, I was convicted of burglary and theft back in 1983. I was, for the lack of a better term, hanging around with some of the wrong people, I believe, at that time. I've since have gone through some therapy and learned that I didn't know at the time why I did what I did, but in going through some therapy and talking to a therapist, I think I've come to realize that I was probably just trying to fit in. I guess that's basically, in a nutshell. It's been so long ago that I'm trying to go through all my notes and remember everything that happened and why and all that sort of thing. But it was a very immature thing that I did. I'm very sorry for what I did. At the time, I took full responsibility for what I did and cooperated fully with law enforcement. I actually went above and beyond what the judge set out for me by writing letters to the people that I was involved with and apologizing for what I had done. I know it wasn't going to bring any kind of compensation back to them, but I felt like I needed to at least let them know that I was a dumb, stupid kid, and I did some silly things. As far as what I've done since that time, I was sentenced to 6 months or 60 days in jail, and I had 2 years of probation, which I did. And 2 weeks after I got out of jail, I got married. I've had 2 children, boy and a girl. They are both obviously grown, and my daughter's had a boy, my grandson. I've done a lot of things with my son and my daughter. I've coached baseball. I've basically supported them through all the things that they wanted to do as growing up. I've spent about 15 years learning martial arts. My kids also started doing martial arts at that time too. They've since grown past it, but I've kept my nose clean for 40 years. I've not had any contact really with the police other than maybe some community service type things. I've stayed out of trouble. I learned my lesson, definitely learned my lesson. The judge ordered me to not have any more contact with the people that I was involved with doing this. And I've since, I have no idea where these people are anymore because I've done what he told me. I had no further contact with any of them. So I guess why I'm looking for a pardon, it's one of those situations that's just been kind of hanging over my head for all these years. I've actually tried to gain employment from some people. I spent the better part of 20 years working in electronics industry, and I tried to get a job from these people that used our product. Knowing what I know about them, I mean, it was like it would have been a perfect job for me, but unfortunately they dealt with security systems, and having a record, they couldn't employ me, which was unfortunate because I think I could have really been an asset to them. My grandson, who is now 18 years old, has expressed interest in doing some of our natural resources like hunting and things of that nature. And I told him I can't help him with that because obviously I have a record. It is something that I would really enjoy doing with him. That's, I guess, one of the main reasons why I would like to get a pardon, other than the fact that it's been 40 years and I've kept my nose clean. I really have no interest in messing that up. I really, I would like to just go out of this world without that hanging over my head. Last January, I had a stroke, which really opened my eyes up to a lot of things. And that's one of the things that I would like to maybe take off my life record, so to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Crownhart.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure we get to any questions. Folks have that. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Crownhart? Okay, well, I think that covers everything then. Thank you very much, Mr. Crownhart.
Okay.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have Mr. Eric Schroeder. Mr. Schroeder, we will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. My name is Eric Schroeder. I'm 60 years old and was convicted of 2 crimes of burglary in 1982. I just turned 18 years old and was still in high school. What I did back then was wrong. I knew it then and I know it now. And with the benefit of hindsight, I can look back at what was going on in my life at that point. And I had just moved to a new city. My parents were recently divorced, and I was just trying to fit into a school and hopefully make some new friends to replace the ones I left behind. Sadly, I got involved with the wrong people. I did make my own decisions. No one forced me into it back then. But as a kid, you don't really understand or think about consequence. You're just trying to fit in. I truly regretted what I had done, and I was truly remorseful. I still am to this day. Thankfully, the judge seemed to realize that I wasn't a bad kid. I think he saw my potential for the future, and because of it, I was ordered 2 years of probation with 200 hours of community service. I never spent time in jail. I never went to prison like the ringleader of the group I was involved with did. I learned a lot during my 200 hours of community service. I worked in the community center and the local old folks home. It was there that I discovered I actually had a passion for helping people in need. The folks I got to know then actually became friends. I would stop and see them on a regular basis, even after my service time had ended. For all this, I always maintained a good job for a kid my age. I always strove to be better. After high school, I went into college for 2 years. When I was in college, I was working for Sears Roebuck Company, and I installed home improvement salesperson. It was a job that was reserved for much older, much more experienced people than me. They were very reluctant to give a recently convicted felon a chance, but they must have seen someone in me that was more than what the judgment indicated. I started to make a decent living and decided to pursue a life as a salesperson. Since then, I've successfully run 2 of my own businesses and worked for many great companies. I was married for 33 years. My ex-wife had 2 children from a previous marriage. I took them on as my own and raised them to be good fathers and great family men. I now have 3 fantastic grandchildren as well. I also have 1 biological daughter. She's recently married and continues to be a true joy in my life. During the early years of my marriage, I adopted 3 special needs children. When I tried to adopt the first 2 is when I learned that the felony conviction would greatly limit what I could do in my life. As much as I wanted to adopt those kids, the red flags kept coming up in the system that I was a convicted felon. We were repeatedly denied at every attempt we made because of those judgments. It took a lot of tenacity and a willingness to give up something, and an unwillingness to give up something that was so right, and that was adopting those 2 special needs kids. The judge in that case saw that who I was back then when I was 18 and who I was now, and ultimately granted permission for me to adopt Jay and Jacob. They're now 32 years old and still live with me to this day. We also adopted a 3rd special needs son. Again, the judge must have seen something in my character that allowed the adoption. Drew is now 20 and lives in a very special residential school in Canton, Massachusetts. I can't even tell you how difficult it was to get him into that school with all the things that were involved with that. It took a lot of faith and perseverance to make it. During those early years, as I raised my family, I learned I've done several different sales engineering positions and engineering positions. Each time I would switch careers or positions, the felony convictions of my youth would come up, and I'd have to explain what happened, who I was then, who I am now. It always added a level of difficulty to everything that I did. My true character managed to shine through normally. 8 years ago, I decided to become an Allstate agency owner. I did that because I wanted to leave a legacy for my 6 children and my community. I started the venture in earnest. Getting an insurance license is very difficult on its own, let alone with felony convictions. Once again, the members of the licensing board saw my potential and granted both the insurance and securities licenses to me. My 2 oldest sons later joined me in that business. Flash forward to present time. Business has been very successful. I continue to expand the agency and now have agency rights in not only Wisconsin, Illinois, but Indiana and Arizona. Each time I expand the business, I must go through the same painful routine of explaining something that happened in my life 40 years ago, which brings me to why I'm here today. I understand how wrong my actions were and decisions back then. I also know that experience changed how I looked at the world. In retrospect, I believe I took what could have been a potential successful and productive life, the end of a potentially successful life, but I turned it into an exceptional life. Ultimately, that bad experience helped me to succeed. I never have and will never have any problems like that again. I've raised 6 wonderful children successfully to adulthood. I've helped my community in both volunteer work and monetarily. I've established a legacy for my children, and I've helped my parents through their retirement years and death. I hope that everything that I've done and continue to do will help you see why a pardon may be appropriate for me. If granted this pardon, it'll make it a lot easier for me to continue expanding my businesses and helping even more people. If that one bad moment in life can be pardoned, it will help me and maybe others feel that if truly good people within the judicial system can help a young man grow into a successful adult, the system does work as it's intended. My situation hopefully proves that. I hope that you can see the changes I've made in the last 42 years and that you recommend to the governor that he approve my application for pardon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Any questions from board members? Just one from me, Mr. Schroeder. Do you gun hunt or have you ever been a gun hunter?
I've had licenses and I go with my friends.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from board members? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Appreciate your time being with us today and hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Our next applicant is Mr. Kyle Tim. Mr. Tim, turn it over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Kyle Tim. I'm 33 years old. I'm pretty nervous about this, so I prepared a statement so I don't forget anything. I'm seeking a pardon for 2 felonies I committed 15 years ago. In 2009, I burglarized 2 businesses. There's no good explanation for why I committed the burglaries. I was young and immature, but I know that's not an excuse. I'll try to quickly give some insight into how I got to the point I chose to commit the 2 burglaries. As a teenager, I had low self-esteem and I was a bit awkward socially. I did not do well in school. I did not have a sense of identity. Even though I had a great family, I did not think I'd be able to create a good future for myself because of those insecurities and because I was immature. I did not think about how my actions impacted other people. I was selfish and short-sighted. I got involved with substance abuse and began to look up to people who lived on the wrong side of the law. Before my felonies occurred, I was drinking too much and engaging in very risky behavior. Some was illegal. On one occasion, I stole a car. I asked a friend to borrow their car, but I had no intention to return it. And I actually attempted to drive into Canada. I was spiraling out of control. I can't tell you what my plan was to do with the car or what I would have done in Canada because I had no idea at the time. I knew it was a bad choice. The only explanation is I was in a troubled mind state. And for whatever reason, I didn't understand the impact my actions have on other people. I was lucky in that case. The owner of the car did not want me to get in trouble, and the authorities did not charge me with the crime. I should have learned a lesson, but I did not. I don't know why. I kept using alcohol and committing very foolish, sometimes criminal acts. The night I committed the burglaries, myself and an acquaintance were drinking alcohol. We discussed the foolish idea that we could get rich by burglarizing businesses. I also remember thinking I could prove I was tough if I did it. I caused physical damage to both businesses, and I stole a bunch of women's purses and marijuana pipes. I was sentenced to 30 days in jail and 2 years probation. I was aware at the time my sentence could have been more severe. I knew that I should stop drinking and stop breaking the law, but I was not ready to be a law-abiding citizen. I became a felon. I'm the only one to blame. But looking back, I now know the only way to handle the problems I created for myself is to own it and rise above it. But as a young adult, I did not do that. I felt sorry for myself and grew increasingly hopeless. In 2010, I was convicted of possession of a small amount of THC. I think it was less than 1 gram. And in 2012, I was convicted of driving while intoxicated. After my DWI conviction, the only support system I had, my family, had no choice but to disassociate with me because I refused to take ownership of my life. That was hard to deal with. After a period of time, my family agreed to make a major sacrifice to help me, and they sent me to a 9-month treatment program far away from Wisconsin. They supported me when I needed them most. I'm proud to say that after going to treatment, I did turn my life around in 2014. Sorry. I completed the treatment program and got enrolled in college. In 2018, I earned a bachelor's degree in psychology. Sorry.
You're okay. Take your time.
I earned a bachelor's of arts in psychology with a 3.4 GPA. Since earning my degree, I have been working in the field of social work. I worked as a recovery coach for a Native American tribe. I've been a mental health case manager for a community mental health organization. And currently, I'm the treatment coordinator at a long-term residential treatment center called Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. I've worked there for 14 months now. I'm applying for a pardon because I'm worried my felonies will impede me from advancing my career. I'm planning to enroll in graduate school and pursue a career as a licensed professional clinical counselor. I like the line of work I'm in right now. I think it's what I'm meant to do, but it is challenging, and I worry sometimes that social work might not be sustainable if I don't ever move up the ranks. I see a young version of myself in some of the people I try to help. I have lived on the right side of the law for 12 years. I work hard to help people who struggle with mental illness and substance abuse. I try to be a good son, brother, employee, and citizen. And I hope that a pardon would help me do even more good work helping people. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you, Mr. Tim. Board members, any questions for Mr. Tim? Reverend Hancock.
Mr. Tim, your recovery at the treatment center sounds like it was pretty remarkable. What do you do now to maintain your sobriety?
Today I focus mainly on physical fitness, and I focus on physical things, exercise, good diet. I am involved with my church, and I'm lucky that my job is a very healthy environment. That's where I spend most of my time, with people who are making a strong effort not to use substances.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Tim? All right, I think that covers it then. Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Tim, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. You do not need to hang out with us on the Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next applicant is Brian Leach. Mr. Leach.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
My name is Brian Leach. I am 32 years old and currently live in Eau Claire. When I was 17, my friend at the time and I were drinking at his house. He told me that if I gave him a ride, that he would break into the local drugstore. I told him that I did not believe him and would give him a ride to prove it. The second that he got back into my car with pills, I knew that I had made a huge mistake. In fact, looking back, the night was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. After he got in my car, I dropped him off at his house and then went home. While on bond for this case, I also received a felony bail jumping. I was speeding in my vehicle and a police officer attempted to pull me over. Due to me being intoxicated and not wanting to get in any further trouble, I fled from the officer. I fully cooperated in the prosecution of my co-defendant and received a total of 13 months in the Taylor County Jail and 5 years of probation for these crimes. While serving my sentence, I worked at the Taylor County Humane Society in exchange for a reduced sentence. Upon completing my jail time, I immediately moved to Eau Claire to attend college. Shortly after starting school, my girlfriend was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was also pregnant and we lost our kid due to the chemo and radiation. My girlfriend was off work during this time, and so I took a break from college and focused working a lot to make sure the bills were paid. At the time, I was working at a local pizza restaurant. With my pardon application, I submitted a letter of recommendation from my manager of this establishment. After working at the pizza restaurant, I worked for 5 or 6 years at a steakhouse. I started on the salad and dessert station and eventually worked my way up to a broiler chef. During this time, I paid all restitution and also received an early discharge from probation. In my later 20s, I decided to make a career change and went back to college to finish my degree in business management. In May of 22, I received a business generalist diploma, and in December of 22, I graduated on the president's list for a degree in business management. Attached with the pardon application is also a letter of recommendation from one of my high school teachers. She has remained in contact with me into my adult life and watched me evolve into the version of myself that I am today. After graduating college, I started a new job that was closer to home and paid a little bit better. I worked there until last summer when my disabled father became ill. I stayed by his side until he passed away this last September. I was his only child and he wasn't married, so since his passing, I have been moving his belongings out of his house and taking care of his estate. I am nearing completion of that project and will soon be entering the workforce with my degree, and I'm ready to start a career. I believe this pardon will increase better employment opportunities in leadership and management roles. If this pardon is granted, it could not come at a better time in my life. I have been sober since December 23rd, 2020, and I'm continuously working hard every day to better my life. As I mentioned in the application, I don't want the irresponsible decisions that I made when I was younger to continue to haunt me for the rest of my life. I agree that I was in the wrong on both of these occasions, and I take full responsibility for my actions. If this pardon were to be granted, it will open more doors with potential employers and allow me to reach my full career potential. In turn, I believe this would have a positive impact on my community as a whole. Additionally, I would like the opportunity to go deer hunting. This is especially true if I ever were to have kids of my own one day. On June 29th of 22, a court determined that I was not likely to act in a manner dangerous to public safety, and my right to possess firearms was restored for that juvenile case. With the pardon application, I included the adjudication and prohibited possession of firearms cancellation report. I am now 32 years old and nowhere near the same person that I was when I was 17 or 18. These crimes happened over a decade ago, and with that, I am a much more different and mature individual. Again, I am truly sorry to the victims and to my community. Thank you to the advisory board for your time today, and to the Governor Evers for allowing residents an opportunity to redeem themselves and truly turn their life around.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. Questions from board members? Nadia.
Mr. Leach, I know that you mentioned that you have been sober since 2020. What type of treatment, if any, are you still doing?
Currently not doing any treatment specific to substance use. I do go to counseling every 2 weeks. That's more, I think, because my dad passed away, that was really hard on me. So it's just more to like keep it in check so that, I mean, it's somebody to talk to outside of my immediate support group, such as friends and family. It's kind of like an outsider's point of view, and I do telehealth, so it's like not as personal, I guess. I feel more comfortable kind of talking to a complete stranger over the phone about life in general.
And what do you think led you to that change or to wanting to pursue, right, like sobriety, like after, right, like your probation and I think just some of the, right, like the other like incidents that you've had like with alcohol since then?
I think maturity has a lot to do with it, just realizing that, you know, you can have 10 good days in a row, but if you slip up and use one of those days, like it's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and I was sick of taking that 1 step back. And a lot of it tied in with going back to college, and it's like, you know, I'm going to invest my time and my money to try to do something with my life and better my life, and alcohol and drugs is just the opposite of what I need to get to where I want to be.
Thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
Any other questions? Reverend Hancock.
In that regard, did you have a 2020 possession of marijuana charge?
Yes, I was in college at the time. I live in Eau Claire. I was down at one of the college bars, and I got possession for a very, very small amount of cannabis. I thought it was decriminalized in Eau Claire and only $1 ticket, but because I had previously been in trouble before, it was not the $1 ticket. So I think I settled for, it was a possession. It was like $180 ticket.
And does your sobriety include marijuana as well as alcohol?
Yep, 100% sober since December 23rd of 2020.
Okay, so that after you got this citation.
Yeah, it was the same. I believe it was the same calendar year, but it was probably like 4 or 5 months later.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions from the board? No, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Leach. Appreciate your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Miss Ebony Bell. Miss Bell?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Ebony. 2012, I was charged with possession with attempt to deliver heroin. I was sentenced to 3 years probation, 30 days in Hubert in a drug and alcohol program. Since then, I went back to school to get my HSED. I've held full-time employment. I became a mom, although I already was raising 3 of my stepkids. I got married, bought a house, started going to church. My family and I spent a lot of time feeding and clothing the homeless. My wife and I have anonymously paid for funerals as well. We also take our kids to shelters around the holidays to give out toys and personal needs to people in need. I think I should receive the pardon because at the time I was only 22 years old. I was young and truly regret my decisions. I take full responsibility for what I've done. I want the pardon because I want to go back to school to become a paramedic and or a nurse because I like helping people. I would like to have my rights restored, my freedom back, that being a felon prevents. With the felony, I am able to go to school, but employment is not guaranteed. I signed up for the paramedic program. I got accepted in it. So I'm still waiting around for that. So yeah, just really looking to get a pardon to continue working. Right now I work with people with disabilities. I want better employment, have dreams, want to show my kids that, doing the right thing, can help you down later on in the road. I'm a different person. I was young. I thought it was right how I grew up, and I truly do regret my decisions.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Questions from the board? Noble?
Yes, Ms. Bell, what was the exact year that you completed your probation?
I don't know offhand, but I know it was 3 years after sentencing. So I was only on probation for 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jerry? Oh, you're on mute.
In 2016, there was a felony strangulation and suffocation charge and a child abuse charge. What was that all about?
Pretty much, I received a call from my mom who had custody of my nephew, who was a troubled kid. He's always physical. He lashes out at her. And this particular day, he was just 100% physical with her. She asked me I get there. She asked me to remove him from her home, take him to the hospital, and I tried to do that. He started to get physical. I then tried to pick him up. I got into my car where he tried to kick out my car window. I then told my mom that I cannot take him. I cannot support him in my vehicle. And it was just, a situation that I really regret going to this day. Because I have my own children and, that charge there get in the way of a lot of things as well. But it is, I take full responsibility for what I've done, which it's a lot in there that, he said I did that, I didn't do. I thought I was just helping the situation, helping my mom and it just backfired, honestly.
And then there was a restraining order in 2019. What was that all about?
2019?
I think so.
I recall a restraining order in 2019.
Okay.
I had a restraining order. My wife put a restraining order against me years ago, but I don't recall. I don't think it was 2019, but that's currently my wife now. So.
Right. And what was the deal about paying for a funeral of a child you didn't know?
Yeah, it was just a kid, me and my wife, we wanted to pay for the funeral. It was a baby, and she, she didn't deserve what happened to her. And it was one day, I just told my wife, like, after we seen it, I just told her, like, we have to pay for this funeral. And that's just what we did, anonymously. So we did receive a letter from the family because where we went to pay for the funeral, they ended up telling the family who we were. So we received a letter from them thanking us. But it was just a sad situation, and I just wanted to help where I can.
how did you become aware that the child had died?
The news. Yeah, we seen it on the news.
So you saw it on the news, and then you and your wife just decided to go and pay for the funeral.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Bell? No, all right. Thank you very much, Ms. Bell. I think that covers it for us, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Miss Benita Willingham. I believe I saw. Perhaps not. Miss Willingham, are you with us on the Zoom? All right, we will have someone try to reach out to her and see what we can figure out there. In the meantime, we will move on to Miss Simona Johnson.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for this opportunity to speak. Like some of the others, I've prepared some notes, so pardon me in advance for a lack of eye contact at times.
Miss Johnson.
Let me turn my
there we
video
go.
on. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I'll speak a little bit about my offense to start. So back in 1991, when I was 19 years old, I was convicted of forgery, uttering, and party to a crime. What happened is an adult friend of my older sister approached me at my job one day and said, hey, I have some checks. I'll pay you some money if you type some information into the check, which I did. I knew that it was wrong. I didn't understand at the time the magnitude of that crime, but I was old enough and mature enough to understand that the check didn't belong to me and I had no business typing anything into it. So he came back and he paid me. He came back another time and said, hey, I'll give you more money. And that continued for several checks. So basically, I understand that I forged and attempted to cash checks that did not belong to me. I fully acknowledge that that was a crime that was very unnecessary, and I chalk it up to a very immature, poor decision. I came from a two-parent household. Both of my parents are college degreed, and I have seen no significant lack in my life. And so I make no excuses, and I am genuinely remorseful. That was 33 years ago. So I'll talk a little bit about my accomplishments since then, which I'm very proud of. In terms of my education, I have obtained multiple degrees. In 1997, I got my associate's degree in nursing. I went on to, after having been a nurse for several years, get my bachelor's degree in nursing in 2002. And the degree that I'm most proud of it was my master's in business administration, which I obtained in 2021. The source of pride in that particular degree comes from me achieving it while working full time and undergoing treatment for cancer, which I have overcome. I'm a breast cancer survivor. Moving on to some personal things about me. I am a proud mother of 2 adult children. I was a product of teen parenthood. Even at the time of the crime at 19, I had a toddler who I had at 16 years old. I have raised those 2 girls to be good, productive members of society. And I'm very, very proud. That's probably my most proud accomplishment. Both of my adult daughters are college degree themselves. Neither of them have ever gotten in an ounce of trouble. My youngest daughter is an aspiring physician. She's currently an EMT and the crew chief for a local ambulance company. My oldest daughter, who is 33, is a florist, so she's also an entrepreneur, and she's also a personal stylist. Very proud mom. Professionally, I've been in healthcare administration. I've been a nurse, obviously, since 1997, going back to those degrees. But I've worked in healthcare administration for 21 years for organizations serving underserved population. The last 11 of those 21 years, I spent operating a Medicare Advantage special needs program called the Partnership Program, where I oversaw that health program in 6 counties across the state of Wisconsin. I have led multiple regional advisory committees for several counties as well, and provided technical assistance, as you guys probably saw in my partner application, for the program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. I highlight those things not to boast my accomplishment, but to underscore the fact that I have provided a very significant positive support of my community and people in the community that have been underserved. And that's something that I'm extremely proud of. I've also taken up a number of health equity causes through partnerships with the National Association of Healthcare Executives, Milwaukee Black Grassroots Network for Health Equity. Most recently, I've been working with the Medical College of Wisconsin and their research team that is working on better understanding mistrust between the minority community and healthcare providers. That list goes on. I've recently been asked to act as the health advisor for a nonprofit called the Kids of Kemet, who takes special interest in mentoring young men. And then lastly, I am a board member, and I believe I put this in the application as well, for the House of Inc. and House of Grace Inc., who is a nonprofit organization focused on improving social and health outcomes for minorities, people of color. So that's how I've spent the last 33 years, and I hope that was not too long-winded. Most importantly, I think I'd like to say that I have been a very productive member of society. That was my first time getting in trouble at 19, and it was my last time getting in trouble at 19. I have paved the way for more community work. I'm passionate about being a nurse, although I have started my own company, Sugar Mama Lifestyles, and am currently entrepreneuring. I still do hold my nursing license, but I'm a very proud entrepreneur. I would petition for this pardon and have petitioned for this pardon because I need some personal healing that I have not achieved even through all of my works. I have grown tremendously, and I really would like a full restoration, not only of my rights, but to take a greater sense of pride and to leave a legacy that is not marred by, this felony. I've had to talk through what happened many times, and it is each time it is as difficult as the first time that I had to explain to an employer how I got involved in such a thing. But I desire to be more influential than I have been. And I think in order for me to do that unhindered, it's going to be necessary for me to leave the felony in the past. So I thank you for your time, and I certainly hope that my case is passed on to the governor with a request to consider pardoning me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any questions from the board? Reverend Hancock.
Ms. Johnson,
Yeah.
the judge in Milwaukee County who reviewed your application supports it. How does
great.
that make you feel?
It makes me feel excited. I came into this process with a lot of anxieties, not really understanding how a denial might impact my life, because I do believe I'm very deserving. So that makes me feel really good that the judge does recognize that I have been a good and upstanding citizen. So thank you for sharing that.
Any other questions for Ms. Johnson? All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Appreciate your time today, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. And then I believe we've been able to get Ms. Willingham on the phone. Ms. Benita Willingham. Ms. Willingham, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. All right, we're going to turn it over.
Okay. My name is Benita Willingham. I'm 61 years old, and my crimes stem from early adulthood, being involved with the wrong people in an abusive relationship that I was afraid to run from, doing as I was told. Basically, my background, being a young Black female, being raised with those understandings as far as to stand by your man, whatever, regardless. Got in some trouble, received my felony cases. However, it has been over almost 40 years, crime-free. Recently, I did receive a traffic ticket. I worked at Amazon, no longer employed there right now because of health issues. Anyways, just exhausted from work hours and kind of like blinked at going through a red light. I was blessed not to have any kind of dangerous accident. It was free, and the police did stop me. I pulled over and everything, got myself together and made it home safely. However, after the little situations, I did escape from the relationship that I was involved with and everything. Moved on with my life. I, again, was a teen mom also. Raised my kids well. I have 5 grandkids. 2 that's graduated from college, 1 that's graduated from college, and others in high school that intend to go on to college as well. Basically, my background as far as my work ethics, I work with healthcare as far as being personal care workers, dealing with mostly family members, taking care of them until their demise. Again, currently during the pandemic, my auntie passed away. I was taking care of her, and fortunately, I was able to get a job at Amazon. They were hiring during that time. I stayed with them. My health started declining and everything, needing surgeries, and also found out that I have an aneurysm that has not erupted yet. However, again, for some years, I had been trying to get a pardon because I was trying to get into different fields of work that I had knowledge of and was unable to because of my felony record. Different employers, under no circumstances, they just, no, we cannot do that. I just want to clear my name. I just want, again, to be able to venture to different places as far as with employment without having to explain the background of what was going on. It's painful talking about it, you know, situations and everything the obstacles that I endured, as well as that I escaped from during that time. So I'm just pleading my case.
Thank you, Ms. Willingham. I just want to see if we have any questions for you from the Pardon Board members. Does anyone have a question for Ms. Willingham? None? All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Willingham. I think that covers it for us, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. You as well. All right, and then our last applicant of the afternoon is Mr. Bradley Sack.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so I've prepared a statement. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my application. My application is for felony forgery. I'm sure it's been a long day for everybody, so I'll keep this brief. I really look forward to this opportunity for a long time. And I can remember the moment I stole that box of checks like it was yesterday. I couldn't have imagined at 18 how a single decision would have such a long-lasting negative impact on my life. I was 18, homeless, and had nowhere to go that night. I left a friend's house. On my way out of the lobby, I saw a box of checks laying by the mailbox. And I was so desperate to not be on the streets that night that I took the easy way out of the circumstances that I created and took those checks and took what I hadn't earned from a man named James Gates. I knew it was wrong. I'm 41 now and can see how very foolish I was that night. As a hardworking adult, I really recognize and appreciate how James Gates must have felt. He was probably working his butt off at his job. Then I came along and helped myself to his hard-earned money. I would certainly feel victimized if someone stole from my mailbox. While preparing this pardon application, I felt compelled to reach out to Mr. Gates to apologize to him for what I did. I am very grateful that he was willing to speak with me by phone. We had a few hours long conversation about life, and we enjoyed it. We talked about what I did to him that day and how it affected him personally. He seemed like a really great guy, and I felt great to be able to apologize to him directly. I never looked back to crime and built a life that has been so amazing and filled with such love and warmth. I'm married to my wife, Farron, of 21 years, and we have 4 amazing children together: Devin, 22, Lillian, 21, Nolan, 14, and my youngest, Hudson, of 2 years. Sometimes things have to be broken to be rebuilt. Being 18 and 19 was the hardest years of my life, but the outcome of all that pain has turned me into the man I am today. I am sorry to anyone I hurt during this time, and I have tried to do right by those I wronged. The felony convictions have had a very negative impact on me professionally. I would like to put that behind me. There are many examples of this in my pardon application. Even after I sent my pardon application, recently I was denied a license to practice real estate in South Carolina. I will have to go in front of their board to plead my case and allow them to grant me a conditional license. I believe very much in building legacy, and I want the good I've done over the last 22 years to count, or at least outweigh what I did that night. I'd like my achievements in family, business, and community to be what I'm remembered for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sack. Any questions from the board? Noble?
Yes. Why did the court order financial counseling?
Because of the forgery was for writing checks, and they felt that because of the situation I was in, being desperate, they wanted me to set up better conditions so I don't put myself in that situation again.
And if there was one thing that really sticks out about that counseling that comes to mind, what would it be?
Man, there were so many things I learned from him. He really focused in on how desperation leads to poor choices. He really had me focus on not letting myself get in those situations. He's like, when you're in a desperate situation, you're going to do desperate things. So he said, I could tell you all these tricks and tools in the trade, but at the end of the day, if you're desperate, you're going to make poor choices. So that's really the thing he made me focus in on, is to be proactive instead of reactive.
Thank you.
Harry.
Mr. Sack, the district attorney in Brown County reviewed your case and supports your application. How does that make you feel?
I'm glad. I wasn't sure he was gonna or not, because he had some pretty funny statements that day in court. He really wanted.
Let me be clear. This is not the same DA. We always ask for the current district attorney to give an opinion, and the current district attorney supports your application.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of really strong community relationships, and a lot of my close friends really went to bat, wrote some strong letters on my behalf that I was really appreciative of, and I hope that he saw that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sack? All right. I think that covers it, Mr. Sack. Really appreciate your time and you sharing your story with us today. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was our last applicant for the afternoon session. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to move the board into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85 sub 1 sub A, D, and F for purposes of deliberations concerning specific cases before the board, considering specific applications, and considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories of specific persons. Is there a motion? Reverend McVicker. And Anthony is the second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, and with that, we will move into closed session.